Chapter 764 Low-Tier Deity Level Advanced Grade Crown of the Final. Zhou looked at the grayish-white crown with 3 small mountains in front of it. It looked ancient and mysterious as he chanted to upgrade it. The next second, wisps of grayish-white airflow seeped out of the void and slowly wrapped around the crown of the final, preventing outsiders from seeing the scene inside. Zhou looked solemnly at the gray airflow wrapped around the crown of the final. As expected of the final chi that's comparable to the chaos chi, he muttered softly. He felt a chill run down his spine uncontrollably. He finally understood why the many bloodline inheritances in his mind had once said that the power of the end was a taboo power and could not be touched. This was a power that could truly end everything. He shook his head and didn't think too much about it. A moment later, the final chi wrapped around the crown of the final gradually dissipated. An even more ancient and mysterious desolate-looking crown appeared in front of him. He looked at the upgraded new crown of the final. Soon information about the divine artifact appeared. Divine artifact name, Crown of the Final. Divine artifact grade, Low-Tier Deity Level Advanced Grade Enhanceable. Divine artifact ability 1, Power of the End. As the Lord of the End, the power of the end that can end all things surges in your body. When you attack any matter, you have a 10% chance of shattering it. When attacking any life form, you have a 1% chance of directly killing it. Divine Artifact Ability 1 Power of the End. As the Lord of the End, the power of the end that can end all things. When you attack any matter, you have a 10% chance of shattering it. When attacking any life form, you have a 1% chance of directly killing it. Divine Artifact Ability 3 The Final Descends. You can collect the power of the Law of the Final by destroying the Lord's faction. After collecting enough power of the Law of the End, you can increase the grade of the Crown of the Final and unlock more abilities of the Crown of the Final. Current collection progress of the power of the Final Law, 45%. Divine Artifact Description. The Lord of the End's exclusive divine artifact. It contains the power of the end of all things. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. After this upgrade, even though it had only changed from a low-tier deity level intermediate grade divine artifact to a low-tier advanced grade divine artifact, it was simply not worth mentioning to Zhou, who had a large number of low-tier deity divine artifacts. However, the effect of the Crown of the Final allowed it to stand out among the many divine artifacts, while the probability of upgrading had only increased by 2% and 0.5%, which looked insignificant as the 2 unreasonably domineering laws of instant death and shattering. Even the most insignificant increase could be said to be a huge increase. It's just that he'll have to spend more effort to level up next time. Zhou looked at its upgrade requirements and raised his eyebrows slightly. Now that he had conquered a beginner kingdom, he was only given 5% of the power of the final law to collect progress. Which meant, if he wanted to upgrade the Crown of the Final from a low-tier advanced grade to a mid-tier deity level elementary grade divine artifact, he would need to conquer at least 11 more beginner kingdoms. He wondered how much progress would conquering an intermediate kingdom, or even an advanced kingdom, give him in collecting the power of the Law of Destruction. Zhou thought, with his current strength, conquering an empire might not be feasible. The strength of an empire was in all aspects after all. Population, territory, logistics, military, generals, war machines, trump cards, connections. An empire-level lord faction would not have any shortcomings in any of them. The number of experts was only a portion of the empire's powerful foundation. If he dared to bring his 2 billion troops to find trouble with an empire now, even if it was only a beginner empire, he dared to believe that the other party could invite a true god tier to deal with him in minutes. For example, Bai He from the Knight Empire, and Sword Emperor Fuyo from the Divine Sword Empire. However, it should not be a big problem to conquer an intermediate kingdom, or an advanced kingdom. I'll take my time. Zhou was not in a hurry. The most important thing for a lord was never to fight for just one moment. The most important thing was development. Under the mighty power of time, if there was anything he wanted, he could slowly develop it without dying. Then, he opened his friend list and found the small group he had established when he sold the kingdom token. In the end, He realized that there were already more than 100 people in this small group, that only had 5 to 6 people back then. Moreover, these people were all top-notch lords among the Cerulean planet lords. Zhou nodded. It seemed that the military industry lord and the others had worked hard in this aspect, after he said that they could recruit people from outside to participate in the next kingdom token auction. Then he typed, Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Currently, I have obtained 15 new extraordinary tier advanced grade kingdom tokens. This king prepares to hold an auction on these extraordinary tier advanced grade kingdom tokens tomorrow. If you want the kingdom tokens to establish a kingdom, come quickly. The highest bidder will get them. Overlord Lord, you're finally here. Military Industry Kingdom, Military Industry Lord. Haha, what a fast speed. The Overlord Lord should be able to get what he wants now. In addition, Your Majesty, you've stunned us this time. You've made a total of 16 Lord announcements on the Cerulean planet. Good Lord. The World Channel is about to go crazy. Your Majesty, hurry up and say something. Otherwise, I'm afraid it won't stop for a while. Dragon Blood Kingdom. Dragon Lady Lord. Congratulations to Your Majesty on your consecutive victories in 16 beginner kingdoms. Tomorrow, I will send someone to Your Majesty's Blazing Sun Kingdom with 50 Drake Cubs to Your Majesty as a congratulatory gift. Mystic Heaven Kingdom. Mystic Heaven Lord. I will also bring a congratulatory gift to the Blazing Sun Kingdom tomorrow and personally congratulate His Majesty. Military Industry Lord. Military Industry Lord. I've just contacted a group of old researchers. They once researched and made neutron super weapons on the Cerulean planet. Tomorrow, I'll bring them and related information over and ask Your Majesty to take a look. Undead Kingdom. Undead Lord. Your Majesty, I will also go to Your Majesty's Blazing Sun Kingdom tomorrow and bring 1,000,000 undead army as a congratulatory gift to Your Majesty. Undead Kingdom. Undead Lord. Your Majesty, are you really not going to consider bringing me along during your battles? Boo-hoo. Zhou chuckled as he looked at their replies. The corners of his mouth twitched when he saw what the Undead Lord said at the end. He thought for a moment and began typing. Blazing Sun Kingdom. Lord of the Blazing Sun, forget it. Event time is precious. This king has something to do tomorrow. If you come, you might not be able to see me. Just send the congratulatory gift. As for the Undead Lord's words, he ignored them. Go dig up the graves and corpses yourself. Don't blame me. You can only blame your Lord talent for being naturally at odds with mine. To be honest, the Undead Lord's undead resurrection talent was indeed very top grade. Even though it was only at the epic tier, it was not inferior to some legendary tier lord talents. However, Zhou's talent was to consume corpses, while his talent was to accumulate corpses. Towards this, Zhou had no choice. Then he casually sent 4 red packets to the 4 of them. Each red packet contained 100,000 Violent Storm Spirit class change certificates and 1,000,000 King of Yellow Gold class change certificates. The 4 of them quickly opened the red packet and sent the word fuck in the chat group. Chapter 765 His Majesty's Loyal Hound. The perturbed linger they were building new kingdoms as well, but they had about 3 to 4 million soldiers in each of their kingdoms, even with the enhancement of the Cerulean Planet Lord Alliance, and the forces left behind by the destruction of the countries. Most of the soldiers were basic military types. There were very few beginner soldiers, intermediate grade soldiers, and not a single high-level soldier type, not to mention special tier and kingdom-level soldier types. They did not expect that His Majesty was actually so generous to give them so many special grade soldier type class change certificates, and even a kingdom-level soldier type class change certificate. They once again felt that joining the Lord of the Blazing Sun was indeed the right choice. Then, after they came back to their senses, and immediately thanked their emperor. Zhou looked at the thank you messages they sent in the chat group, and did not mind. He had already obtained more than 1 billion soldier-type class change certificates from the King's Treasure Box and the Violent Storm Spirit. In the past, he would definitely want to sell it. However, he was no longer short of missed cores now, so he had no intention of selling them. Therefore, he kept them until now. Now he had a new idea. Since the soldiers under his command no longer needed these 2 soldier-type class change certificates, he might as well reward them to his Star Alliance, the Military Industry Lord, and the Dragon Lady Lord. This way, not only would he not lose out, but he could also increase his side's strength. At the thought of this, Zhou opened the Star Alliance Lord chat group and distributed 2 million King of Yellow Gold class change certificates and 1 million Violent Storm Spirit class change certificates to each of the 312 Star Alliance Masters. A total of 312 Star Alliance Masters meant giving away 312 million soldier-type class change certificates. It was enough for them to change all the soldiers under them to high-level soldier types. Then the rest could still be used for a long time. When the Star Alliance Masters saw so many high-level soldier-type class change certificates, they immediately caused a commotion. Spiritual Medicine Lord. Thank you, Big Brother. Wind Dust Lord. Your Majesty, my God. Paper Immortal Lord. I'm Your Majesty's loyal hound. Destroyed City Lord. It's fine to be loyal to His Majesty, but you have to protect your integrity, brother above. Gold Merchant Lord. Thank you, Your Majesty, for the big red packet. Lord of Azure Mystic. I was on the way back when I suddenly received a big red packet from His Majesty. I was pleasantly surprised and did a jazz dance for the other lords in the cabin. Lord of Starfall. His Majesty suddenly issued so many high-level soldier-type class change certificates. Is there a big battle to be fought? Blueberry Lord. With these soldier-type class change certificates, I'm not afraid even if I have to go head-on against an Empire-level Lord faction. Great Sage Lord. My intrinsic treasure saber is already yearning for the enemy's blood. Blazing Sun Kingdom. Lord of the Blazing Sun. Everyone has been fighting alongside this king during this period of time. This king also knows that everyone has worked hard. It's just some class change certificates. Everyone feel free to use them. In the future, if any of your lords perform outstandingly in war, this king will have everything you need, including high-level soldier-type class change certificates, high-level treasures, mist cores, and even divine artifacts. Lord of the Lu family. Am willing to acknowledge Your Majesty as my foster father. Silver Spear Lord. Your Majesty, you're too polite. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let me criticize this unfilial son for Your Majesty first. Lord of the Dragon Well. Didn't you notice the divine artifact His Majesty mentioned? His Majesty actually has a divine artifact. Fertile Land Lord. Hee, I knew about it long ago. Gold Merchant Lord. Your Majesty is impressive, awesome. I was wondering why the equipment on those generals was especially dazzling. So it's the light of a divine artifact. Zhou smiled when he saw this. Even though he had sent out a lot of news about the divine artifact, he had indeed never taken the initiative to publicize it. Other than a small number of lords and friends who were close to him, the others were indeed not too sure. He did not say much. He found Linger alone and gave her a kingdom token before she sent a message. Blazing Sun Kingdom. Lord of the Blazing Sun. Linger, I'll give you this kingdom token. Hurry up and build your kingdom. Spiritual Medicine Lord. Big brother, this is too precious. I can participate in the auction and auction it myself. Blazing Sun Kingdom. Lord of the Blazing Sun. You're my younger sister, and the kingdom token is mine. Why are you auctioning for it? Don't worry. The kingdom token is a very rare thing to other lords, but your big brother can have as many of them as he wants. Just take it. To the current Zhou, he really could have as many beginner kingdom tokens as he wanted. If it was not enough, he would just find a few more beginner kingdoms of the people of foreign races. Moreover, Linger's spiritual medicine city had almost become the Blazing Sun Kingdom's exclusive medicinal herb production base. It had contributed greatly to the development of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Linger had also invested almost all her energy in nurturing medicinal herbs and making potions for the Blazing Sun Kingdom. She did not even have time to care about the development of her territory. Under such circumstances, Zhou had to help his sister no matter what. He thought for a moment and typed again, frowny face. Blazing Sun Kingdom. Lord of the Blazing Sun. Tomorrow, I will send an army to your territory and help you conquer a beginner kingdom near your territory. Then, I will give you this kingdom as the foundation for you to build a kingdom. Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Then, I'll send you 3 more legendary tier heroes with fate level slots. This way, with the kingdom token, the 3 conditions for establishing a beginner kingdom are basically gathered. This way, you should be able to build a kingdom that belongs to you in the shortest time possible. Currently, he already has more than 100 heroes under his command. Moreover, with the enhancement of a large number of high-quality hero inheritance secret manual, the heroes with the lowest fate level among them were all legendary tier heroes. There were even many heroes with low-tier and mid-tier deity level hero fate level slots. Therefore, it was really nothing to give Linger and the 3 legendary tier human heroes. However, Linger did not know much about it. Linger was stunned when she heard Zhou promise. After a while, she came back to her senses and hurriedly typed a reply, frowny face spiritual medicine lord. Big brother, I'm worried that I won't be able to be a good queen. Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Read more books and practice more at deploying people. Just be a conservative ruler. Even if you destroy the kingdom, it'll give you another beginner kingdom. Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun. And be confident in yourself. Your big brother is very serious. You're actually very talented as a lord, especially in managing medicinal herbs. I've heard about it recently. Everyone says that you're the #1 supplier of medicinal herbs to the human race on the cerulean planet. Zhou was not lying. The spiritual medicine city was currently developing extremely well. It was not inferior to people who were good at developing territories like the Gold Merchant Lord and the Paper Immortal Lord. Moreover, Linger's Spiritual Medicine Alliance had almost 60% of the cerulean planet lords who specialized in the medicinal herbs trade on the World Channel. Linger had so many cerulean planet lords in her hands, but there was no chaos so far. It could be seen how strong Linger's ability was. Therefore, Zhou was really confident in letting Linger build her own spiritual medicine kingdom. Chapter 766 War Summary. Linger also felt Zhou's encouragement. She took a deep breath and determination appeared in her eyes. Then, she typed frowny face spiritual medicine lord. I won't disappoint big brother. Zhou smiled when he saw this. He chatted with Linger for a while more before closing the chat box. Then he opened the World Channel. As expected, he saw the lords of Cerulean Planet discussing enthusiastically about the 16 lord announcements on the Cerulean Planet. Zhou looked at it for more than half an hour, and was also secretly satisfied for more than half an hour. Half an hour later, Aaliyah came to tell him that Deputy Commander Wuxia had led the army back to the Blazing Sun Kingdom, and was requesting an audience with Bai Yin. Let them in. Zhou said. Yes, Your Majesty, Aaliyah said respectfully, and left the study. Soon Wuxia and Bai Yi walked in. Wuxia/Bai Yin greets Your Majesty. The two of them said respectfully, and led the way. Zhou nodded, and looked at Wuxia. Did you encounter any accidents today? Your Majesty, everything went well. Wuxia said respectfully. Zhou acknowledged. Your Majesty, Bai Yin handed over a war list and a spatial ring with both hands as she spoke. Deputy Commander Wu and I have already asked all the soldiers to pass through the Triumphal Arch just now. This is the specific war list. The spatial ring contains the corpses of enemies above the legendary tier, and the corpses of heroes of the people of foreign races. Please take a look, Your Majesty. Zhou took it and opened the list of battles. Today, they had eliminated a total of 620 million enemies. Among them, Bai Yin and the others led 300 million soldiers. When they conquered the 16 King Alliance, they cooperated with the Flame Spirit King and the other kings, and eliminated more than 10 million enemies of the people of foreign race, led by the King of the Demon Soldier Kingdom. They also controlled the remaining 43,003,650 people of foreign race soldiers of the 16 King Alliance. As time was tight, these surrendered soldiers were not brought back yet. They were still being guarded by the Flame Spirit King. Zhou thought for a moment, and told Bai Yin that there was no need to bring these people of foreign race soldiers back to join his army. These 16 people of foreign race kingdoms also needed strength to protect their territories after becoming his subordinates after all. It was good for these local soldiers to stay. Bai Yin nodded respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded, and his gaze returned to the list of battles to continue reading. On the other side, Wu Xian led more than 1,742 million Blazing Sun Kingdom soldiers, and more than 65 million soldiers under the command of the Star Alliance Master. In a day, he killed more than 610 million fog monsters around the territory of the Night Empire. There were less than 200 million fog monsters in the entire territory of the Night Empire. It seems that I can complete the Night Empire faction quest, eliminate the fog monsters tomorrow. A satisfied smile appeared on Zhou Zhou's face. The speed at which he completed the mission was much faster than he had estimated at the beginning. The Scarlet God spirits around the Night Empire had been destroyed by them today. There were not many left of the fog monster army. It seemed that the Night Empire should be completely safe for a period of time after tomorrow. This way, he could also focus on doing the Divine Sword Empire's faction quests. He stopped thinking and continued reading. The corpses of a total of 620 million enemies were enhanced by the titles of the King of Loots and the Strongest Lord. They obtained a total of 3,161,821 legendary tier mist cores, 28,601,650 epic tier mist cores, more than 310,000 extraordinary tier mist cores, more than 520,000 diamond tier mist cores, more than 711,000 white platinum tier mist cores, more than 1,225,000 yellow gold tier mist cores, more than 2,960,000 white silver tier mist cores, and more than 6,562,000 green bronze tier mist cores. There were more than 25,610,000 skill books, and more than 30,014,000 pieces of equipment. 21 trillion units of basic materials. More than 80 million units of basic elemental gem resources. There were more than 10 million units of thunder element gems. More than 8 million units of life elemental gem resources. More than 10 million units of death elemental gems. More than 32 million origin crystals. 548,212 green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments. 501 Holy Spirit tier scarlet divine crystals. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up when he saw the resources of the life elemental gem and the death elemental gem. These resources, and the more than 3 million life elemental gems, and 2 million death elemental gems, in his hands were just enough to increase the level of his territory. He suppressed the urge to immediately upgrade his territory, and continued to read. In addition, in terms of the increase in the combat strength of the soldiers, even though the total number of soldiers under Zhou Zhou had not increased much, their average strength had increased greatly. In terms of the total number of soldiers, the 20% of the Insight defection troops handed over to him by the Lords of the Star Alliance had reached 21,505,860 fog monsters. Excluding the troops of the Star Alliance, the total number of troops under Zhou Zhou's command had already reached 532,529,549 soldiers. Among them were 15,528,731 black iron tier soldiers, 10,305,730 green bronze tier soldiers, 1,095,214,200 white silver tier soldiers, 668,305,640 yellow gold tier soldiers, 256,796,880 white platinum tier soldiers, 35,508,583 diamond tier soldiers, 8,125,210 extraordinary tier soldiers, 535,001 epic tier soldiers, and 689 legendary tier soldiers. In addition, Soul Arrow, Wu Tu had broken through to the legendary tier advanced grade. The Dragon King of Volcano and Destruction, Nazario, the Dragon King of War and Strength, Extreme Dragon had broken through to the legendary tier. The original spirit race, Ansel had broken through to the legendary tier elementary grade. The other heroes and generals had also improved greatly in terms of strength. Zhou looked at the list of battles, and was silent for a while before frowning slightly. The speed at which the soldiers' strength increased seemed to have slowed down, he thought. His gaze landed on the last 689 legendary tier soldiers. The total number of legendary tier soldiers had only increased by more than 100. Honestly, this was already a lot. Even in an advanced kingdom, their king would probably wake up laughing in the middle of the night if he could increase his strength by more than 100 legendary tier soldiers in a day. But Zhou was different. He had the epic tier lord talent, blessing of the war god. And he remembered that when he looked at the list of battles yesterday, there were more legendary tier soldiers than this. Today they had eliminated about twice the number of enemies as yesterday, but the efficiency of their strength increase was even lower than yesterday. Zhou quickly understood the reason. Has the number of recruits increased too much? Zhou muttered to himself. In order to increase the strength of this group of recruits, he specially ordered the veterans to bring the recruits to hunt the fog monsters. Under such circumstances, the strength of the recruits increased rapidly, and the speed at which the veterans increased would naturally slow down. At the thought of this, Zhou could not help but ponder. Chapter 767 Epic Tier Scarlet Lord Talent Sphere. Zhou pondered. The solution to this matter was easy. There were two simple methods. The first method was to temporarily slow down the increase in the strength of the recruits, and let the recruits and veterans increase their strength on the battlefield. He did not have to let the veterans guide and protect the recruits. This way, the speed at which the recruits' strength increased would definitely decrease, but the speed at which the veterans' strength increased would definitely increase again. Of course, due to the increase in the total number of troops, even if the strength of the veterans increased, they should not be comparable to before. Secondly, expand the range and scale of the war, and let his soldiers face stronger enemies. A treasured sword edge was tempered from scratch. As long as they dared to challenge stronger enemies, be it recruits or veterans, the speed at which their strength increased could recover to its previous level, or even faster. Zhou did not hesitate, and decided to choose the latter. With his current total military strength of more than 2 billion, there was indeed no need for him to play with weak enemies every day. Over time, it would not be beneficial to the growth of his soldiers. Then he looked at the spatial ring. Rows of corpses were neatly placed inside. At the top were the corpses of 6 low-tier deity-level enemies. The remaining were the corpses of 1,265 legendary tier enemies. There were also the corpses of 24 heroes from the people of foreign races. With a thought, Zhou used his consciousness to extract the loots from their corpses in his spatial ring. Soon the enemy corpses were all extracted. He obtained a total of 1,265 low-tier deity-level books of the God Spirit, 73 hero inheritance secret manuals, more than 25,000 low-tier divine crystals, more than 17,000 low-tier deity-level divine artifacts, 2,530 low-tier divine spark fragments, 36 mid-tier deity-level divine spark fragments, more than 70,000 low-tier deity-level materials, minerals, potions, building blueprints, and other loots, 56 points of mid-tier deity-level materials, minerals, potions, building blueprints, and other loots, 18,975 green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments. The remaining loots were things that Zhou looked down on. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. Not to mention anything else. If these books of the God Spirit were distributed, the generals of the various armies under his command would all become people with the potential to become gods. Then he took out another spatial ring. The spatial ring inside was nothing else. It was the Scarlet God Spirit corpse that the human God Spirits in Sword Immortal had given him after he, Lu Zhen, and the other Empire God Spirits went out to complete the God-slaying quests today. There were a total of 16 of them. Among them was the corpse of a low-tier deity-level elementary grade Scarlet God Spirit. Lu Zhen and the others had discovered it when they were cleaning up the battlefield. It had died from their initial joint attack. Zhou also extracted their corpses. The result surprised Zhou. This was because even though there were only 3 mid-tier deity-level divine artifacts on the corpses of the 3 high-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirits, There were only 6 low-tier deity-level divine artifacts on the remaining mid-tier deity-level and low-tier deity-level bodies. Zhou only obtained 9 high-tier deity-level divine artifacts and 18 mid-tier deity-level divine artifacts when he extracted them. However, other than that, Zhou also obtained 3 true God-tier books of the God Spirit, 1 true God-tier elementary grade hero inheritance secret manual, and 150 true God-tier divine crystals. Most importantly, he even obtained an epic-tier Scarlet Lord talent sphere. The remaining loots were some normal ones. Zhou took a look and put them into his king's treasure box. Then, he took out the hero inheritance secret manual and the book of the God Spirit below the true God tier and handed them to Bai Yun. Same old rules. Whoever performs the best and has the most needs will be rewarded with these hero inheritance secret manual and the book of the God Spirit. Zhou said, "Yes, Your Majesty." A look of surprise flashed across Bai Yun's eyes when she saw so many hero inheritance manuals and the book of the God Spirit. Then she said respectfully, "Also, inform the kings of the Fire Spirit Kingdom and ask them to gather all the lords in the territory of the 16 King Alliance Kingdom the day after tomorrow at the latest. I want to see their talents. If you see someone I think is strong, I won't be stingy with the rewards. Oh yes, get the Flame Spirit Country Lord and the other country lords to come over. I want to take a look at them too." Zhou said. This was also an old custom. Seeing their talents was just an excuse. His true intention was to take the Lord Talent Crystal fragments from them. There were a total of 16 Lord fragments in the territory of all the lords. Zhou's eyes were filled with anticipation. He wondered how many Lord Talent Crystal fragments the lords of the 16 countries could provide him in total. "Yes, Your Majesty," Bai Yun said respectfully. "Gather 100,000 elite soldiers and let them recuperate for a while. After resting, follow me to the Green Bronze Mausoleum." Zhou said. Even though it was already late, his soldiers were all dark walkers and could already ignore the influence of the scarlet fog. However, even so, it was better not to go out at night. Firstly, they could recuperate and let the soldiers, who had already experienced a bitter day, rest well. Secondly, according to the bloodline inheritance in his mind, when the scarlet fog completely descended at night, other than the strength of the fog monsters being greatly strengthened, some strange things would also appear in the scarlet fog. It could be an extremely powerful fog monster, a dangerous scarlet mystic realm, a door to an unknown place, or even a strange raving that would make life forms go crazy. Even though they appeared very rarely, they still had to be wary. After all, facing these extremely dangerous strange things, not to mention Zhou, even high-tier deity-level existences had a high chance of dying when traveling. Even true God-tier existences would probably escape in a sorry state if they encountered some special and strange things. Even though Zhou had the talent to avoid danger, he did not want to take the initiative to come into contact with these strange things. However, there was a spatial teleportation array that led straight to the Green Bronze Mausoleum in the human territory, so this trip was not very dangerous. "Yes, Your Majesty," Bai Yun said respectfully again. She had long heard His Majesty tell her about the Green Bronze Mausoleum, so she was already prepared for this. Zhou nodded. Then, he looked at Wuxia and seemed to have discovered something. He was slightly stunned before saying in surprise, "Uncle Wu, are you about to break through? This is all thanks to the True God Tier Intermediate Grade Book of the God Spirit and the True God Tier Intermediate Grade Hero Inheritance Secret Manual that His Majesty gave me previously. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to understand this last barrier and see the wonders of that God Spirit in my entire life." Wuxia said gratefully. "Sure." Zhou also smiled and nodded. "Uncle Wu, go into seclusion early. I see that you're about to break through." "Yes, Your Majesty." Wuxia nodded and left. Bai Yun stared blankly at Wu Zin's back as he left. Teacher has also broken through. Chapter 768 Epic Tier Lord Talent. Reincarnation Sacred Palace. 1. Bai Yun pursed her lips. She knew that His Majesty had always valued her and would favor her with many resources. Compared to the many resources she had obtained, Wuxian had actually obtained much fewer cultivation resources than her. Even so, Wuxian was also one step ahead of her, and was about to embark on the path of becoming a god. However, she had yet to touch that step. She felt that she had let His Majesty down for treating her so well. Bai Yin. Zhou gentle voice sounded. Your Majesty. Bai Yin came back to her senses, and said hurriedly. Bai Yin, people who achieve great things require a certain calmness. The more anxious you are, the less likely for you to get what you want. The path is already in front of you. You just have to walk slowly. Don't be anxious. I don't need you to immediately become a god spirit. Zhou said slowly. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yin's body trembled. Then, she seemed to understand something, and her voice gradually became determined. Zhou looked at Bai Yin, whose aura was changing slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face. It seemed that his territory would welcome 2 new human god spirits tomorrow. His mind wandered. Actually, Bai Yin was not inferior to Wuxian. In fact, she was even stronger than him in some aspects. For example, Bai Yin had always maintained the heart to work hard, and was willing to learn humbly from anyone. Even if that person's status was far lower than hers, she was still willing to learn the other party's strengths. At the same time, she had the ambition to make contributions. Wuxian had always had the thought of retiring. With this thought in mind, Wuxian actually did not have much room for improvement. Even though Zhou had given the other party the true god-tier book of the god spirit, and the hero inheritance, this spiritual vitality was not something that could be regained in a short period of time. Zhou understood her feelings. Many people were the same. When he was young, he had unlimited energy, and the standards of his dreams were extremely high. He even thought of changing the world. However, as he grew older, he encountered too many realistic things. In addition, his energy had fallen, and his abilities in all aspects had decreased. His cognition would gradually change, and the standard of his dreams would gradually decrease. He began to want to pursue some stable and practical goals. Later on, he became older, so he began to learn to let himself go, and began to prepare for retirement. He could only gradually hide his dreams when he was young. Occasionally, when he saw envious young people, he would sigh with envy and say, "It's good to be young." Then, he would leisurely drink a cup of chrysanthemum wolfberry tea. Zhou was different. When he first entered university in his 20s, he immediately gave up. His dream was to find a leisure job with insurance and money. He had taken 50 to 60 years fewer detours than the others. If not for the sudden change in the world, Zhou would not have become like this. Speaking of which, it was precisely because of Wu Xin's mentality that Zhou chose to let Bai Yin, who had good potential, temperament, and fighting spirit even though she did not have enough experience, continue to be the only legion commander of the Blazing Sun Army, and let Wuxian, the old general, hold the fort. Now, it seemed that even though his choice could not be said to be perfect, at least there were no mistakes. This was enough for Zhou. Has the Demon Soldier Kingdom really submitted to the Scarlet Force? After enlightening Bai Yin, Zhou asked curiously. According to the letters we found from the palace of the Demon Soldier Kingdom, the Demon Soldier Kingdom is indeed in collusion with a high-level Crimson Kingdom called the Meng Nian. However, the Demon Soldier Kingdom perished too quickly. The high-level Crimson Kingdom probably hasn't reacted yet. Bai Yin said. Zhou smiled and nodded. As long as a high-level Scarlet Empire was not related to a true god tier, he did not have to worry too much. Oh yes. Where did you put the loots of the spiritual Gu Kingdom, and the bloodline loots of the other people of foreign races? Zhou thought of this, and immediately asked. He had not forgotten the 10,000 Gu insect royal bloodline of the spiritual Gu Kingdom, with unlimited potential. Whether his chaos human bloodline could be upgraded again depended on this 10,000 Gu insect royal bloodline, and the bloodlines produced by Zhou. They have already been placed alone in His Majesty's 12th Royal Treasure Vault. Bai Yin said respectfully. Zhou nodded, and let Bai Yin leave without saying anything else. After Bai Yin left, Zhou was the only one left in the room. Zhou was not in a hurry to absorb the bloodline loots. Instead, he took out the epic tier Scarlet Lord Talent Sphere. His eyes lit up as he looked at the purple ball of light wrapped in a wisp of scarlet aura. My luck has been pretty good recently. I actually obtained 3 epic tier Lord Talents in a row. Then, his expression turned serious as he looked at the Scarlet Lord Talent Sphere and chose to purify it. The next second, a golden light flashed on the Scarlet Lord Talent Sphere. When he looked again, its message had changed. Treasure name, Lord Talent Sphere, Reincarnation Sacred Palace, Treasure Grade Epic Tier. Treasure Effect. After absorbing it, the Lord will have the Epic Tier Lord Talent, Reincarnation Sacred Palace. Treasure Description. A Lord Talent Sphere purified by the Supreme Will. After absorbing it, you can obtain an Epic Tier Lord Talent. Reincarnation Sacred Palace? Zhou frowned. What kind of Lord Talent was this? It sounded like some kind of special building. He did not think too much about it. With a thought, a new text notification appeared. Absorb this Lord Talent Sphere Epic Tier? Yes, Zhou said. The next second, the Epic Tier Lord Talent Sphere immediately turned into countless purple light spots and surged into his glabella. Zhou closed his eyes. A moment later, he reopened his eyes again after some time. Then, he immediately opened his Lord's personal information. His Lord Talent column had been updated again, and a new word, Reincarnation Sacred Palace, Epic Tier, appeared. My 30th Lord Talent. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. Then he opened the details of this talent. Lord Talent, Reincarnation Sacred Palace, Epic Tier. Reincarnation Sacred Palace. You will have a special building in your body, Reincarnation Sacred Palace. It's indeed a special building type Lord Talent. And it's actually in my body. Zhou was surprised. Then, he closed his eyes and carefully sensed what was different in his body. Soon, he realized that in the internal world of his original spirit race bloodline, a towering but very dilapidated netherworld palace actually appeared out of thin air. He looked at it. Only one of the main halls of this netherworld palace was still intact, and this main hall alone occupied more than 1,000,000 square kilometers. The other halls looked like they had already turned into ruins. According to the information given to him by this netherworld palace, they could only be opened after repair. Repair? How? Zhou was puzzled. However, he did not think too much about it, and looked at the information of this building. Chapter 769 Epic Tier Lord Talent, Reincarnation Sacred Palace, 2. Building Name, Reincarnation Sacred Palace, Building Level, Special, Unique. Building Function 1 Gate of Time Reincarnation. Collect the power of a certain independent world, and throw it into the Gate of Time Reincarnation. You can permanently open the Gate of Time to this world. The Gate of Time recorded the passage of time and space in this world. The Lord of the Reincarnation Sacred Palace could condense a ticket to the passage of time by consuming the mist core/divine crystals and throw a wisp of his or another life form's soul into the Gate of Time through this ticket. He could transform into a life form's avatar and experience the passage of time in this world to undergo a magical journey of his soul. When a life form clone dies in the time world, the life form clone will restoration to become a soul/divine soul and return to its main body. It will not affect its main bodhi state in reality. Building Function 2 Endless Years. You can adjust the time flow ratio between the time world and the real world by consuming mist cores/divine crystals. Building Function 2 Space-Time Reincarnation Gate. Sealed. This Lord Talent needs to be upgraded to the legendary tier to be activated. Building Function 2 Boundless Space-Time. Sealed. This Lord Talent needs to be upgraded to the legendary tier before it can be activated. Building Function 3 Eternal Samsara Sacred Gate. Sealed. This Lord Talent needs to be upgraded to the mythical tier. Unique before it can be activated. Building Function 3 Eternal Immortality. Sealed. This Lord Talent needs to be upgraded to the mythical tier. Unique to be activated. Building Hint 1 Current World Record, High Continent. Building Hint 2 When there are more than 100 recorded worlds, this Lord Talent will automatically increase to Legendary Tier Lord Talent. Building Hint 3 When the Lord of the Reincarnation Sacred Palace has half the control of the Supreme Origin Great Cosmos, this Lord Talent will automatically increase to the mythical tier. Unique Lord Talent. Building Hint 4. This Lord Talent cannot be upgraded with the Lord Talent Origin Crystal. Building Description. It was once one of the world origin treasures of the reincarnation boundless universe. Later, it was taken away by the Supreme Will and refined into a supreme treasure with unbelievable abilities and unbelievable potential. It's actually a Lord Talent that can be upgraded. Zhou looked at the information of this building and raised his eyebrows slightly. The last time he had seen such a Lord Talent was on the peaceful times. He did not expect to encounter another one today. And the upper limit of his level was actually the mythical tier, unique level. However, its upgrade requirements were ridiculously high, not to mention upgrading to the legendary tier Lord Talent. Upgrading to the mythical tier, unique Lord Talent, actually required him to have half of the control of the Supreme Origin Great Cosmos. What kind of joke was this? If he had the complete control of the Supreme Origin Great Cosmos, he could directly become the Lord of all races. He was probably not far from having half of the control of the Supreme Origin Great Cosmos, even if he did not reach the level of the Lord of all races. At that time, he might not even need a mythical tier unique Lord Talent. Most importantly, it could not use the Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals to increase it yet. In other words, he could only follow the requirements written on it to increase this Lord Talent. Zhou looked at the upgrade requirements for this Lord Talent and was speechless. This was a pure late-stage Lord Talent. It seemed that it was impossible to upgrade it in a short period of time. He stopped thinking about those unrealistic thoughts, and his gaze landed on its first two building functions. The Gate of Time Reincarnation. Endless years. It looks a little like the Master God tier space in some infinite novels. Zhou scratched his chin. This Lord Talent would definitely be a top-grade Lord Talent suitable for novices to set sail when he first arrived in the High Continent. However, he had already established a kingdom. Wasn't this Lord Talent a little late? We can't judge so early. Let's test its effect first. With a thought, Zhou used the Time Reincarnation Gate, and a text notification appeared. Reincarnation Sacred Palace Hint. Please choose the time ticket you want to condense. 1. Soul Avatar of the main body. Condensing the ticket for this period will be placed before 1,600 years. It will consume 10 legendary tier mist cores. 2. Lonely old man in his later years. Untalented sickly, born in the human race's high sun kingdom. Floating Cloud City. The ticket to condense this period will be placed before 512 years. It will consume 5 black iron tier mist cores. 3. Outstanding Chi Practitioner. Owner of the Heaven tier Fire Spiritual Root, Fire Poison Body, Level 6 Chi Refinement Cultivator. He is from the Wind Thunder Sect, one of the 5 great empires of the human race, the Great Xia Empire. He lived before 1011. The ticket to condense this period will be placed before 1011. It requires 10 yellow gold tier mist cores. Prompt 1. The strength of the living being condensed from the time ticket cannot exceed the upper limit of the owner's own strength. Prompt 2. You can consume 1 legendary tier mist core to reforge the tickets from the previous years. Interesting. Zhou clicked his tongue in wonder. Then he tried to reforge it. Reincarnation Sacred Palace Hint. Please choose the time ticket you want to condense. 1. Soul Avatar of the main body. Condensing the ticket for this period will be placed before 1,000 years. It will consume 10 legendary tier mist cores. 2. The fetus in Su Hu's womb. No talent, no illness, and relatively high soul talent. It comes from the human heavenly dew kingdom. The ticket to condense this period will be placed before 360 years. It will consume 2 black iron tier mist cores. 3. Water Spirit Dragon of the Black Abyss Dragon Palace. Pure-blooded dragon with a water elemental dragon body. Talent, summoning the wind and rain. Talent, heavy water. Concealed 3% of the divine beast, the azure dragon, bloodline in its body. Early stage nascent soul realm dragon. Born in the Black Abyss Sea, Black Abyss Dragon Palace. favored by the Black Abyss Dragon King, Ao Qing. The ticket to condense this period will be placed before 658 years. It will consume 5 yellow gold tier mist cores. Prompt 1. The strength of the living being condensed from the time ticket cannot exceed the upper limit of the owner's own strength. Prompt 2. You can consume 1 legendary tier mist core to reforge the tickets from the previous years. Zhou looked at the changing time entry option and raised his eyebrows slightly. His gaze wavered between option 1 and 3. In the end, he chose option 1 to give it a try. There was no cooldown anyway. After he chose the first option, a new text notification appeared as the 10 legendary tier mist cores in his spatial ring disappeared. Reincarnation Sacred Palace hint. Endless years has been activated. Please choose the ratio of time flow you need. 1. 1:100. 100 days for 1 day in the real world. Using this time flow ratio requires 100 legendary tier mist cores per day. 2. 1:1000. 1000 days for 1 day in the real world. Using this time flow ratio, it will cost 1000 legendary tier mist cores a day. 3. 1:10,000. 10,000 days for 1 day in the real world. Using this time flow ratio, it will cost 10,000 legendary tier mist cores a day. Zhou chose option 3 without thinking. The rich had the right to be so willful. Chapter 770 Time World. Saha Empire. The next second, an ancient netherworld gate appeared in the hall. The netherworld gate was engraved with various planes, worlds, and universes. It recorded the stories of countless normal life forms, extraordinaries, heroes, and even god spirits. There were an endless amount of them. Ordinary people would easily fall into the charm of these mysterious and ancient stories. However, this naturally did not affect Zhou. However, he felt a slight pain in his soul, just as he was about to take a closer look. Then he felt that about 1% of his soul origin had been separated from his soul and thrown into the door. Boom! The gate of time reincarnation suddenly let out a low rumble. Then, with an ear-piercing friction, a small crack slowly opened. At the same time, an image suddenly appeared in Zhou's mind. 1,000 years ago, humanity, Songhuang Kingdom, White Platinum Tier Region Territory, Big Year City. The human soldiers were fighting a small Scarlet Army faction. The flames of war raged on the ground. The sound of weapons clashing, the soldiers roaring, the sound of flesh being torn apart. All kinds of voices sounded continuously. Zhou stood on the city wall and saw this scene of war. Tisk. The descent was fast enough. He was a little surprised. Then, he frowned when he saw the scene in front of him. But, even though I know that this is just something that happened in the past, I'm still a little unhappy to see this scene. Then he willed. The next second, 30 grayish-white auras quickly surged out of his glabella and formed 30 humans, more than 2 meters tall in front of him. They wore grayish-white helmets and grayish-white armor. Some carried a grayish-white spear on their backs. Some held huge swords. Some carried bows. Some held huge hammers. And some held golden maces. There were all kinds of weapons. They exude an aura that seemed to come from the end of the world. It was terrifying. They were his 30 final guard members. Go! Destroy these fog monsters. Zhou ordered. Yes, my lord, the final guard said respectfully. Then, they turned into 30 streaks of grayish-white light and flew in all directions. Zhou watched this scene calmly. He was not worried about their safety. This was because each of them had the same strength as him, and had also reached the legendary tier elementary grade. Moreover, as a Divine Kingdom soldier type, they were only at the legendary tier elementary grade when facing any existence below the god spirit realm. Even if it was a pure-blooded dragon, they had an extremely high chance of winning in a one-on-one situation. Even when facing low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirits, with the foundation of the Divine Kingdom soldier types, especially the power of the instant death laws and the power of the shattering laws, they were not afraid at all. On the other hand, a low-tier deity-level god spirit might be afraid of them. Svel. Siamacronym after all. If a low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit was unlucky, and the final guard members triggered the instant death rule, They would die on the spot even if they were god spirits. The instant death law skill was so unreasonable. If the nomological laws of shattering were triggered, their armor, weapons, and even their divine bodies might be shattered. This was an extremely painful loss for the god spirits. On the battlefield in front of him, Zhou had also observed it. This small Scarlet Army faction did not even have many legendary tier fog monsters, let alone the Scarlet God Spirit. Therefore, even if he did not make a move, the 30 final guard members beside him could easily take them down. In fact, that was indeed the case. When the 30 final guards began to show off their skills in Taisui City, the Scarlet Monster soldiers, who had been suppressing the human soldiers in Taisui City, and were about to attack the city, were immediately forced to retreat. The final guards were very smart. They knew that they were outnumbered, so they focused on killing the Scarlet powerhouses in the small Scarlet Army. As the Scarlet experts were killed one by one, the small Scarlet Army was soon thrown into chaos. Then, they were forced to retreat by the defenders of Taisui City. 2 hours later, all the Scarlet Fog monsters in Taisui City either died on the battlefield or fled. Grand Duke City was now completely safe. The surviving soldiers and subjects all looked relieved that they had survived the calamity. We survived. We actually survived. It's all thanks to those benefactors who attacked just now. That's right. Where's my benefactor? The soldiers and subjects of Taisui City were just about to look for their benefactors when they suddenly realized that their benefactors had disappeared. In the sky, in a fast-moving galaxy, Zhou was standing inside the galaxy, looking at the map of the Blue Emperor Kingdom that he had found in the ruins. The closest human empire to the Zhonghuang Kingdom is the Saha Empire. Zhou looked at the information on the map and muttered, "The Saha Empire, one of the 5 great empires of the human race, other than the Night Empire and Divine Sword Empire that Zhou knew about, there were also the Great Xia Empire and the Heavenly Barbarian Empire." The Saha Empire was a religious country dominated by Buddhism. It was said that Buddhism was prevalent in this human empire. Even the cultivation path was a traditional Buddhist cultivation path. Buddhist cultivators' exclusive realms were Spirit Attraction Foundation Establishment, Saraira Buddha Heart Out of Body, Soul-Splitting Body Fusion, Tribulation Transcendence, Death, Vajra, Arhat, Bodhisattva, True Buddha and Buddha. Zhou was naturally not interested in these things. The reason why he went to the Saha Empire was because he wanted to find a stable place to comprehend the Lord's laws. He did not intend to stay for any longer than just for an hour in reality. According to the time-flow ratio of 1 to 10,000, an hour in reality was equivalent to 10,000 hours in the time world, which was a total of 416 days. With such a long time, he was completely confident that he could completely comprehend the incomplete Lord talent behind the Hand of Wealth, a Black Iron Tier Lord talent. The rest of the time could be used later. It wouldn't disappear anyway. A moment later, the Saha Empire, Boundless Imperial City. When Zhou arrived, he revealed his identity as a legendary tier expert and was quickly received by the Buddhist cultivators. After he explained his purpose for coming, the Buddhist cultivator in charge of entertaining him quickly arranged a special cultivation cave abode for him. Zhou also gave the other party 200 legendary tier mist cores as a fee for renting a cultivation cave abode. Benefactor, you can cultivate here quietly. I promise that no one will disturb your cultivation for the next 2 years. When the monk saw the 200 legendary tier mist cores, his eyes lit up, and he took them with a smile. Zhou nodded nonchalantly. As a time world, everything inside was an illusion. Even the galaxy he was on was simulated by the time world. Therefore, Zhou naturally did not mind spending 200 fake legendary tier mist cores. Chapter 771 Law Skill, Black Iron Hand of Wealth. Origin of the Wisdom Demon Crown? After sending the monk away, Zhou turned around and entered the cave abode. Then he closed the door and went straight to the cultivation room. He sat cross-legged on a praying mat and took out a crown. It was the Wisdom Demon Crown that Ji Yin had given him. Zhou looked at the Wisdom Demon Crown, took a deep breath, and put it on his head. A moment later, after realizing that there was no reaction from the wisdom demon crown, Zhou calmly took it down. Indeed, the simulated wisdom demon crown can't answer my question. I thought the simulated wisdom demon crown could be used in the time world. Zhou shook his head. If that was the case, the simulated wisdom demon crown could be used infinitely. Unfortunately, this bug could not be fixed. Then, he took out the simulated Bodhi Supreme and realized that the ability to simulate the Bodhi Supreme to increase comprehension could still be used. However, it was the same as the simulated wisdom demon crown. The simulated Bodhi Supreme could not answer the question either. It did not even have its own intelligence. It was just a dead thing. Then, he took out the regal sage Dao sword and was pleasantly surprised to discover that its destiny regal divine artifact law ability could also be used. With Bodhi Supreme and the regal sage Dao sword, I have the ability to double increase my comprehension. Coupled with the terrifying difference in time flow between the time world and the real world, my comprehension of the Lord's laws will definitely improve quickly. Zhou's eyes lit up. This was the most useful benefit to him at the current stage of the reincarnation sacred palace. One had to know that promotion energy could be obtained quickly in a short period of time by killing enemies. However, there were very few ways to quickly improve one's comprehension of Lord's law in a short period of time. The Book of the God Spirit and the Divine Spark Fragment were one of the few methods that could quickly increase a life form's comprehension of nomological laws. However, this was useless against Zhou. This was because the path he took was the strongest law in the legends, the path of the Lord's law. This path, since ancient times, even though there were countless prodigies, very few life forms had walked this supreme path. Even most of the God spirits had never heard of the existence of the Lord's law. Therefore, it was basically impossible for Zhou to use the Book of the God Spirit and the Divine Spark Fragment to improve his comprehension of Lord's law and become a god through this nomological path. Currently, he could only rely on himself. And now, the appearance of the reincarnation sacred palace gave him the possibility to quickly increase his comprehension of the Lord's laws in a short period of time. He did not think too much about it. He closed his eyes and activated the Supreme Eye. With the Bodhi Supreme in his left hand and the regal sage Dao sword in his right, he began to comprehend the Lord's law contained in the Hand of Wealth. An hour later, in reality, in the study, Zhou suddenly opened his eyes. A smile appeared on his face. Then, he waved his right hand and saw Grandpa Mao, who was half the height of a person, appear in front of him. Right on the heels of that, he waved his right hand again, and a full 100 black iron tier mist cores appeared in front of him. I've completely mastered the Lord talent of the black iron tier, Hand of Wealth. Thick spatial power erupted, forming a spatial passageway with endless suction behind it, directly sucking it into the spatial rift. Zhou lamented. In the 416 days in the time world, Zhou did not dare to waste any time. No matter what trouble the outside world caused, he did not go out to watch the commotion. He stayed in his cultivation cave abode and focused on comprehending the Lord's laws. With the terrifying comprehension enhancement brought to him by the Bodhi Supreme and the regal sage Dao sword, until the last 10 days, he had finally fully comprehended the Lord's law contained in the Hand of Wealth. And from it, he understood his own law skill, Black Iron Hand of Wealth. It was the ability he had just used. Roalphen Dialfes in Omicron Viepsilon L. See Omicron M. Then, he opened his Lord Talent list and clicked on the Hand of Wealth's Lord Talent, wanting to see what changes it had undergone. Lord Talent, Hand of Wealth, Black Iron Tier, Nomological Law Enhancement. Specific Talent Effect 1. With the Hand of Wealth in hand, consume the energy in your body and scoop it into the void. You can obtain 100 Black Iron Tier Mist cores. Specific Talent Effect 2. When you and your subject extract the spoils of war from the corpse, there is a 100% chance of obtaining an additional mist core equivalent to the corpse's strength realm. Zhou looked at the obvious change in the Lord Talent of the Wealth Hand, and a smile appeared on his face. Firstly, he could only randomly obtain 1 to 100 Black Iron Tier Mist cores previously, Now he could definitely obtain 100 black iron tier mist cores. The Hand of Wealth could only be used once a day previously, while there would be no upper limit to its usage. However, it would consume the chaotic origin energy in his body. With the chaotic origin energy in his body, it was not a problem for him to use it 1 to 2,000 times a day if he wanted to. With this Hand of Wealth, he could earn 200,000 black iron tier mist cores a day, which was the total value of 2 diamond tier mist cores. However, even if he used it 1,000 to 2,000 times, the benefits were still too low. Zhou would not specially do such manual labor, just to obtain some black iron tier mist core. Finally, specifically talent effect 2. Originally, when extracting the spoils of war from the corpse, there was a 1% chance of obtaining an additional mist core equivalent to the strength realm of the corpse. Now it has directly become 100%. It seemed that there were not many of them. However, he could not underestimate it. However, when Zhou saw that the 3 words were still at the black iron tier, his expression could not help but turn strange. It was actually a black iron tier lore talent? Based on the Hand of Wealth's current talent stats, Zhou felt that it was not a problem to evaluate it as a silver and yellow gold tier lore talent. It should be the effect of the nomological law enhancement at the side. He decided not to think any more about it. Let it be as long as it didn't affect his usage. Next, he'll condense another time ticket for another identity, and try the effect of the other identity. But before that, let's try the effect of the Wisdom Demon Crown first. Zhou flipped his right hand, and saw a golden crown appear on it. It was the Wisdom Demon Crown. Zhou was about to put it on his head, when the Bodhi Supreme's excited voice suddenly appeared in his mind. How about giving this to me? As long as you give it to me, I can directly cancel the debt you owe me previously. Do you think I'm stupid? The corners of Zhou's mouth twitched twice. Then he pointed at the Wisdom Demon Crown. Even though there are restrictions when using this Wisdom Demon Crown, I have a way to ask it 4 to 5 free questions. As for the debt I owe you, I can pay it off in 2 days. In that case, why should I give it to you? Bodhi Supreme sneered when he heard that. This thing has a lot of after effects. Are you sure you can handle it? You know where it came from? Zhou immediately understood what he meant and asked curiously. There's a crazy soul imprisoned inside, and he was once called Top Birth. Bodhi Supreme wanted the Wisdom Demon Crown very much, because he did not bargain with Zhou's question. Instead, he directly gave the answer. Top Birth, the Wisdom Master God of the 10 Great Master Gods? Zhou was shocked. Chapter 772 Black Iron Tier Lord Talent. King then, Zhou reacted. What do you mean by a former soul? I can't tell you that, unless you ask me how many questions I can answer. However, I can tell you one thing. This Wisdom Demon Crown is related to a big secret of the Wisdom Master God tier. If he finds out that the Wisdom Demon Crown is in your hands, and you know that this is his secret, he. Bodhi Supreme smiled sinisterly. You tricked me. Zhou's expression was a little ugly. If Bodhi Supreme didn't tell him that this Wisdom Demon Crown was related to the Wisdom Master God tier, wouldn't he be able to use it normally? Wouldn't he not have to worry about being harmed by the Wisdom Master God tier? After all, Ji Yin had owned the Wisdom Demon Crown for so long, and had never seen his being targeted by the Wisdom Master God tier. Looking at the way his handed the Wisdom Demon Crown to him, he probably didn't know that the Wisdom Demon Crown was related to the Wisdom Master God tier. As for Bodhi Supreme, he seemed to have read his mind and mocked. Don't tell me you think that as long as you don't know this secret, the Wisdom Master God tier won't be able to find you? How can an existence like him be someone you can infer? Perhaps one day, he will suddenly want to see this crazy soul that he has sealed and find you. At that time, even if he sees that you don't know anything and spares your life, can you guarantee that he won't set up any confidentiality measures for you? To the 10 Master God tiers, even if it's a supreme agreement, it's not like they don't have the capital to violate or even destroy it. Zhou said nothing. He admitted that Bodhi Supreme's words were indeed reasonable. Can I throw it away? Zhou suddenly realized. Why would you rather throw it away than give it to me? Bodhi Supreme could not help but complain. Isn't giving it to you the same as still being with me? Zhou asked. Don't worry. I have a unique method to block the Wisdom Master God tier from the Wisdom Demon Crown. Bodhi Supreme said. Zhou thought for a moment and suddenly said with a heavy expression. But this is the first gift His Majesty Ji Yin gave me. He just gave it to me, but I gave it to you. The next time I see His Majesty Ji Yin, His Majesty Ji Yin asks me how the Wisdom Demon Crown is doing? Then how should I answer? Furthermore, Princess Yu Ling is also my good friend. How can I increase the number of gifts her father gave me at will? Bodhi Supreme said. What do you want? Zhou tapped the crown with his finger. Give me 3 answers. Bodhi Supreme. Deal. Zhou immediately felt that it was a pity. This guy actually agreed so readily. It seemed like he had bid too little. However, there was no reason to go back on his word. Zhou could only take out the Wisdom Demon Crown and hand it to Bodhi Supreme. It was unknown what method the Bodhi Supreme had used to make him disappear, but Zhou felt that the other party might also have a storage space. However, he didn't ask. Instead, he said seriously, I want to use one question right now. Ask away, Bodhi Supreme said in a good mood. I want to know, with the conditions I have now, how can I comprehend a Lord Law skill before I reach the threshold of becoming a God Spirit? Zhou said, when I let you walk on the path of the Lord's Law, I knew that you would ask me this question sooner or later. This is also the most difficult period for all existences who have walked the path of the Lord's Law. Bodhi Supreme encouraged. Then its tone suddenly changed. It smiled and said, but you're much luckier than them. Because you have me. On the matter of guiding life forms on the path of becoming a god through the Lord's Law. Other than the best effect of the Supreme Will's personal guidance, the only existence second only to his guidance effect is me. Show me all your Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. Bodhi Supreme said confidently. Zhou looked suspiciously at the Bodhi Supreme in his hand. Then, he followed its request and took out all the Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. He piled them more than a meter high and placed them in front of it. Bodhi Supreme flew out and spun around the fragment. Soon, found it. Bodhi Supreme said. The next second, 10 Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments flew out and landed in front of Zhou. Fuse it into a Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals. Bodhi Supreme said. Zhou did as it said. In any case, there were only 10 Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. He really didn't lack this. Sure. Bodhi Supreme looked at the Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals that had been successfully fused and said in satisfaction. Just integrate this Lord Talent. In the future, focus on comprehending this Lord Talent. After comprehending it, upgrade it, and then comprehend the upgraded Lord Talent. When you can completely comprehend the Lord Law contained in its extraordinary Tier Lord Talent, you can rely on the Lord Law skill you comprehended to become a Lord Law God Spirit. Zhou was a little surprised. He immediately took the Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals and looked at them. Treasure name, Lord Talent Sphere King, treasure grade, Black Iron Tier Treasure Effect. After absorbing it, the Lord will have the Black Iron Tier Lord Talent King. Treasure description, a Lord Talent Sphere purified by the Supreme Will. You can obtain a yellow gold tier Lord Talent after absorbing it. Absorb this Lord Talent Sphere Black Iron Tier? King. What an easy name. This thought flashed across Zhou's mind. Then without much thought, he chose to absorb this Lord Talent. The next second, this Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Sphere immediately turned into a black light spot and surged into his glabella. Zhou closed his eyes. A moment later, he reopened his eyes again after some time. Then, he immediately opened his Lord's personal information. In his Lord Talent column, the ordinary Black Iron Tier Lord Talent, King, appeared. The 31st Lord Talent. Zhou said. Then he opened the details of the talent. Lord Talent King Black Iron Tier. King. As the king of subjects, you can mark a subject that belongs to you and control everything they have, including but not limited to appearance, bloodline, skills, weapons, law skills, and even illusory fate. The effect of this Lord Talent is actually like this. Controlling everything? Zhou pondered. This did indeed have a hint of a governing law skill. He thought for a moment, then closed his eyes and activated the king's innate ability. The next second, a virtual screen suddenly appeared in his mind. On this virtual screen were countless faces of the Blazing Sun Kingdom's subjects. There were nearly 3 billion of them. From a high-tier deity level like Heros to an ordinary dog, they were all included in the king's lord talent. Zhou had a feeling, as long as he wanted to, he could mark any life form that appeared on this virtual screen. He could even replace the marked subject with a thought. He could even let himself live as the other party and inherit everything the other party had. What a terrifying lord talent. Zhou was secretly shocked. This was the first time he felt that the Black Iron Tier Lord talent could be so strong. Chapter 773 Marking Wuxia. Ranking. He thought for a moment, and asked Aaliyah to call Wuxia over. Wuxia appeared in no time. "Greetings, Your Majesty," Wuxia said respectfully. Zhou acknowledged. Then, he told Wuxia everything about him wanting to mark Wuxia, and the meaning of this mark. "Are you willing?" Zhou asked finally. Wuxia was one of the few powerful subjects in his territory who could jump levels and erupt with the combat strength of a high-tier deity level intermediate grade, with the strength of a low-tier deity level intermediate grade. Even though Qi Xiantian could do this, their abilities overlapped, so Zhou still chose Wuxia. "I'm willing," Wuxia said without hesitation. What was wrong with being marked by his king? As a subject of the Dragon Slayer King, and a dead loyal subject of Zhou, he could not wait to offer everything he had to Zhou. Coupled with the existence of the small resurrection spell, they were not even afraid of death. Why would they be afraid of this? On the contrary, they were afraid that something would happen to the Lord, because he was not strong enough. After all, the reason why their territory had the big and small resurrection spell was because of His Majesty. If something happened to His Majesty one day, the big and small resurrection spell would also disappear. They did not want that future to appear in front of them. Zhou nodded and activated his king ability to officially mark Wuxia. Zhou immediately felt an extremely obvious connection between the two of them after he marked it successfully. Through this connection, Zhou could instantly borrow Wuxiao's appearance, bloodline skills, weapons law skills, and even the illusory fate. Appearance, bloodline skills, law skills, and other things were fine. Even if Zhou borrowed them, it would only be equivalent to him making a temporary copy. Wuxia could also use them normally and would not be affected. However, if it was weapons, energy, mental strength, and other consumption items, Zhou was equivalent to extracting it from Wuxia. It could be said to be extremely domineering. With my current strength and Wuxiao's full strength, coupled with the true god-tier divine artifacts, Sword of New Dimension creation, Zhou's eyes lit up. Under such circumstances, his strength could probably be ranked among the top among the high-tier deity level. Of course, they were still ants in front of a true god tier. At the same time, Wuxia also felt Zhou's mark on him. However, his expression did not change. He did not care at all. After that, Zhou did not chat much. After letting Wuxia leave, he entered the time world of the Reincarnation Sacred Palace again. However, this time, he did not continue the remaining time of the previous tickets. Instead, he spent 5 yellow gold tier mist cores to condense a new time ticket, which was the identity ticket, the water spirit dragon of the Black Abyss Dragon Palace. Then, through the passage of time, he spent 100 legendary tier mist cores to open a 1:100 time flow ratio and entered the time world. He came out helplessly. Why is this Black Abyss Dragon Palace's water spirit dragon's comprehension so poor? To think that it's a pure-blooded dragon. When I entered, it was as if I had entered the body of an old man. The comprehension ability to comprehend the laws has decreased by more than 100 times. The sensitivity to laws has also decreased by more than 100 times. Most importantly, this water spirit dragon doesn't have any aptitude for the Lord laws at all, nor do it have many Lord talents on me. I can't comprehend the Lord laws at all when I enter the time world with this body. At most, I can comprehend some water laws, heavy water laws and vortex laws. Zhou Zhou shook his head. There was a time that he felt that a high-level bloodline creature like the dragon race was a very high-level existence. However, as the level of his chaos human constitution increased, coupled with the appearance of the concept of Lord Law aptitude, he suddenly realized today that pure-blooded dragons did not seem to be much stronger. In the future, I'll enter time with my main body and comprehend the Lord's law. The time tickets for other identities don't seem to be of much use to me for the time being, Zhou Zhou thought. Of course, it could not be said to be useless. When he opened the time world of the reincarnation sacred palace to the soldiers in his territory to use, allowing them to experience the tempering and cultivation of the time world in a short period of time, and greatly increase their strength in a short period of time. Under such circumstances, the high-quality status randomly obtained from these year's tickets was extremely useful to those soldiers with poor aptitude. Even those low-quality entrance tickets could allow the soldiers to experience the hardships and tribulations of time in the time world, to sharpen their temperament and will. Temperament and resistance. It might be useless when his strength was low. However, as his strength increased, and he even reached the God Spirit level, in the eyes of God Spirits, the importance of temperament and resistance was comparable to potential talent. Even Zhou Zhou planned to use an ordinary time entry body to sharpen his temperament and resistance in the time world when he had nothing to do. Look at the rankings. I helped the 2 Empire Lords and so many Empire God Spirits today. I should have obtained many faction points, right? I wonder how many rankings I can increase. After Zhou Zhou understood the usage of the reincarnation sacred palace, a ranking appeared in front of him. He looked at it. Myriad Races Lord Faction Points Ranking, 1st place. Original Spirit Race, True Lord, 500 million faction points. 2nd place. Human Race, Lord of the Blazing Sun, 379 million faction points. 2nd place. Shepherd's God Race, Heaven Chasing Lord, 2 to 54 million 6,000 faction points. 4th place. Chaos God's Race, Great One Lord, 210,000 faction points. 5th place. Myriad Spirit Race, Spiritual Venerable Lord, 123 million 9,000 faction points. I'm only in 2nd place. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. One had to know that he had obtained a total of 229 million faction points in one day. And this actually did not surpass the True Lord and become first on the Myriad Races ranking? What a fierce True Lord! Zhou Zhou's expression was solemn. Could this guy complete 1 or 2 faction quests in a day? However, what he did not know was that just as he was marveling at the strength of the True Lord, the other top lords of the Myriad Races also called the Lord of the Blazing Sun a big pervert. It was not difficult to understand why the True Lord could obtain a large number of faction points in a short period of time. The foundation of their race was available after all. There were not many restrictions in this event, even with the restrictions of the Supreme Agreement. The Lord of the Blazing Sun was different. If not for his performance in the previous event, he was a lord from a nameless human race. Under such circumstances, this guy could actually withstand the pressure of so many top lords of all races and forcefully rush to 2nd place on the rankings. What kind of counterattack plot was this? Chapter 774 fused the bloodline of the 10,000 Gu Emperor race. Legendary tier chaos human bloodline. When the higher-ups behind some race civilizations heard that the Lord of the Blazing Sun had actually suppressed the lords of many top races and ranked 2nd on the Lord ranking, they immediately felt that the name of the Lord of the Blazing Sun looked dazzling again. They even began to feel that the human race was an eyesore to them. At the same time, in the hearts of the other lords of the myriad races, who came from ordinary backgrounds, the impression given to them by the Lord of the Blazing Sun slowly changed. They were all from normal races, and had also been suppressed by those top-notch races. It was like everyone came from the same poor place. Now that they suddenly heard that a child from their hometown had actually been admitted to Qingbei University, the other villagers naturally felt that this was a matter that brought honor to their ancestors. At the same time, it gave them a feeling and ambition. They felt that there was no need for them to be so afraid of those high-level bloodline races, while they were now also ambitious, because they might be able to achieve what the Lord of the Blazing Sun achieved too if they work hard. It was right not to debate whether these two thoughts were right or wrong. However, this at least allowed these lords of ordinary races to have the desire to advance again. They no longer felt that they were the companions of some high-level race civilization like before. Under such circumstances, the Lord of the Blazing Sun naturally became the role model of these lords of all races, who came from ordinary backgrounds. Speaking of which, Zhou looked at the rankings for a while, especially at the name of the true lord, before closing the rankings. I can't slack off, Zhou thought to himself. Then, he walked out of the advanced grade Lord's Paradise, and came to the 12th Royal Treasure Vault. The Royal Treasure Vault was built by Zhao Changshu, and 1 year after Zhou established the Blazing Sun Kingdom. He had built a total of 2 treasure vaults. The first was the Military Supplies Vault. Such treasure vaults were specially used to store and protect military supplies. At the same time, they were also used to store military merit exchange resources in the military merit exchange system. The other was the Royal Treasury. The Royal Treasury was specially used to store and protect Zhou's personal collections and non-military type treasures. It could also be said to be Zhou's personal vault. Of course, if it was the most precious treasures, such as the Lord Talent Crystal Fragment, divine artifacts, special building blueprints, rare mineral resources, rare gems, and so on, Zhou would keep them close to his king's treasure vault. After Zhou arrived at the Royal Treasury and performed the bloodline verification at the door, he successfully opened the door and walked in. After looking around, he quickly found the location of the bloodline loots of the spiritual Gu Kingdom and the other people of foreign races in the southeast corner. Zhou immediately walked over and realized that most of the bloodline loots were all kinds of hearts. They were contained in a crystal device that isolated air and energy to maintain the vitality of the heart. There were more than 100,000 of them, even though most of them were duplicates. Zhou took a glance and quickly discovered that there were more than 100,000 legendary tier advanced grade 10,000 Gu insect royal bloodlines inside. Seeing this, he did not take it immediately. Instead, he first absorbed and fused all the people of foreign race bloodlines that could strengthen his chaos human bloodline in the other bloodlines. However, it might be because these bloodlines were all normal bloodlines below the extraordinary tier. After Zhou absorbed it, he realized that he did not let his chaos human bloodline break through to the legendary tier elementary grade. Instead, it remained at the epic tier advanced grade. Zhou felt helpless. Was it so difficult for this chaos human bloodline to advance to the legendary tier? After fusing dozens of people of foreign race bloodlines, his chaos human bloodline actually did not move at all. He could only pick up the remaining bloodline, the 10,000 Gu insect royal bloodline, and begin to fuse it. He first controlled 10,000 sets of 10,000 Gu insect royal bloodline to fuse them. Soon, a heart emitting a rich chaotic light appeared in front of Zhou. What kind of fucking light pollution bloodline is this? Zhou complained. Then he looked over. Bloodline name: 10,000 Gu Emperor Clan Bloodline. Bloodline level: high tier deity level advanced grade. Bloodline effect: after absorbing it, the user can obtain the bloodline of the 10,000 Gu Emperor race. After fusing with this bloodline, the user will gradually awaken the bloodline ability of the 10,000 Gu Emperor race during their growth. Prompt 1. Fuse 10,000 sets of high-tier deity advanced grade, 10,000 Gu Emperor Clan bloodline, and you can obtain 1 Master God, elementary grade, 10,000 Gu God race bloodline. I can still continue to fuse with the bloodline of the Master God tier elementary grade 10,000 Gu God race. Unfortunately, I only have more than 6,000 portions of the 10,000 Gu insect royal bloodline left. Zhou looked at the remaining 6,000 portions of the 10,000 Gu insect royal bloodline and frowned slightly. Now that the spiritual Gu kingdom was destroyed, it would be difficult to find more descendants of the 10,000 Gu royal family. I can ask Bodhi Supreme if there are any high-level bloodlines of the 10,000 Gu race left in this world. However, using a precious opportunity to dispel my doubts in exchange for a Master God tier elementary grade bloodline. This might not necessarily be a profit. Zhou Zhou rubbed his chin. He thought for a while and stopped thinking about it. He first fused this 10,000 Gu Emperor clan bloodline into his Chaos Human bloodline. You have absorbed one portion of the 10,000 Gu Emperor clan bloodline. High-tier deity level advanced grade. Your Chaos Human bloodline has unearthed more potential and advanced to the legendary tier bloodline. Your sixth senses powers have been greatly enhanced. You have awakened the high-tier deity level 10,000 Gu Emperor race talent. Emperor of Venomous Insects Poison Body. You have awakened the high-tier deity level 10,000 Gu Emperor race talent. Emperor of Venomous Insects Poison Body. You have awakened the high-tier deity level advanced grade 10,000 Gu Emperor clan talent. Gu God Affinity. You have grasped the inheritance of the 10,000 Gu royal family's Gu worm. The 10,000 Gu Holy Scripture Book 2. You have grasped the common sense inheritance of the 10,000 Gu Emperor clan. You have grasped the secret inheritance of the 10,000 Gu King. Zhou Zhou opened the specific information of these abilities and talents. Race talent name. Emperor of Venomous Worms Poison Body. Talent level. High-tier deity level advanced grade. Talent description. As a member of the 10,000 Gu Emperor clan, not only are you born good at controlling all kinds of Gu worms, and even God-tier Gu worms, you can also accommodate all kinds of Gu poison and God-tier Gu poison. As a member of the 10,000 Gu Emperor race, the divine blood surging in your body is the best nourishment for the growth of the Gu. More than 90% of the Gu in the endless heavens could not harm you. When you encounter an ownerless Gu, there is a high chance that the Gu will take the initiative to find you and yearn to acknowledge you as its master, even if it is already owned. Your physical fitness will increase slightly with every normal Gu poison you absorb. Your physical fitness and soul quality will increase greatly with every rare Gu poison you absorb. Not only will your physical fitness and soul quality increase greatly with every God-tier Gu poison you absorb, there is even a higher chance of obtaining additional talents. Zhou Zhou looked at this talent and nodded in satisfaction. Chapter 775 Book 2 of the 10,000 Gu Holy Scripture. Resurrecting the Tri-Talent Sword Immortal. Zhou Zhou nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. As expected of a high-tier deity-level race talent. Just the fact that more than 90% of the Gu in the endless heavens could not harm him made him feel that it was not a loss. Not to mention the innate abilities of the other 10,000 Gu Emperor races. He looked at the other talents. Race talent name. Immunity to toxin. Talent level. High-tier deity level advanced grade. Talent description. As a member of the 10,000 Gu Emperor clan, your resistance to toxins exceeds most life forms in the endless heavens. You are immune to high-tier deity level advanced grade, and any toxins below. Race talent name. Gu God Affinity. Talent level. High-tier deity level advanced grade. Talent description. As a physique owner of the 10,000 Gu Emperor race, who is closest to the Gu God, most of the Gu in the world are willing to treat you as their emperor and revere you supremely. Not only can you command these Gu without signing a contract, you can even summon the resistance of the Gu God under certain circumstances, allowing a high-tier deity-level divine Gu to appear and protect you. Race talent hint. Summoning the protection of the divine Gu requires consuming the energy in your body. If the energy in his body is insufficient, he will not be able to summon the divine Gu. If the energy is exhausted, the divine Gu will disappear. When Zhou Zhou saw this, the smile on his face deepened. There was naturally no need to mention the effect of the high-tier deity-level advanced grade toxin immunity. Its practicality could be said to be maxed out. The Gu God's affinity was also extremely strong. On the surface, it looked like a passive ability. However, when Zhou Zhou looked at it this way, it was a summoning skill. Moreover, it was a skill that could summon a high-tier deity-level existence. So terrifying, as expected of a high-tier deity-level race talent. Zhou Zhou sighed. Looking at it this way, he had another god-tier fighter. Not bad, not bad. As for consuming the energy in his body, he did not have to worry at all. He had just marked Guiqiao. At this moment, It was equivalent to having 2 energy reserves in his body. Under such circumstances, it was naturally easy to summon a high-tier deity-level divine goo. Then, he closed his eyes and looked at the illusory purple book in his mind. On the cover of the book was a huge black worm eye. It was the 10,000 goo Holy Scripture. At this moment, it had already automatically unlocked the second volume, with Zhou's 10,000 goo Emperor body. The second volume of the 10,000 goo Holy Scripture not only recorded more poison worms, goo control techniques, and some common sense and profound knowledge that needed to be understood when making goo worms. Moreover, it also recorded some cultivation methods for god-tier goo worms. For example, the fate goo that could affect fate and create a fated marriage. A 9 revolutions acacia goo that could make a woman fall head over heels for him in the blink of an eye and wish she could offer herself to him. A longevity limitless goo could escape 3 calamities and 5 tribulations and extend one's lifespan by 10,000 years. A heaven's will goo could greatly increase his comprehension ability in a short period of time. A defeating god goo could greatly reduce the enemy's luck. A calamity extermination goo could devour lightning tribulation. All kinds of magical goo nurturing methods made the experienced Zhou envious. There are some god-tier goo worms that I can get my subordinates to collect materials to make. However, the other god-tier goo should be the exclusive method of the immortal world's goo cultivators. I'm afraid most of the rare immortal tier materials to make such goo can only be produced in the immortal world. Unless I master the channel to the immortal world, I shouldn't be able to make these god spirit level goo in a short period of time. Zhou asked curiously. However, it was not impossible. Be it Qi Xiantian, the mystic heaven lord, or His Majesty Lu Zhen of the Divine Sword Empire. They should have grasped the method to go to the immortal world. Zhou planned to ask tomorrow if he could forge some top-grade god spirit tier goo worms in the 10,000 goo Holy Scripture. He would have a few more trump cards. After upgrading his bloodline, Zhou went to Flower Sword Immortal's residence and found him. Are you going to revive Brother Luo now? Flower Sword Immortal stood up excitedly. Senior Flower Sword Immortal, come with me. Zhou nodded and smiled. Then he brought him to the shelter of the Goddess of Life. In the shelter, the man and the Sword Immortal quickly found Carol Moeli, who was praying. After she finished praying, Zhou called her over. Your Majesty could have just called me over when you arrived. Why wait so long for me to finish my prayers? Carol Moeli was embarrassed. I respect your faith. Zhou shook his head and did not say anything else. He told her about wanting to revive Tritalent Sword Immortal. The Tritalent Sword Immortal is a low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade human god spirit. I can revive him. Carol Moeli smiled as she said. These words made Flower Sword Immortal extremely excited. Carol Moeli looked at him strangely, but she didn't say anything. Then, Carol Moeli brought the two of them to the statue of the Goddess of Life. Zhou looked at the statue of the Goddess of Life, that looked intimate and gentle. He was grateful to this god. It would probably be a long time before he knew that his heart had gone the wrong way if not for him. Now, not only had he avoided the wrong path, he had also comprehended a Lord-type law skill that was enough to become a Lord-type god spirit. This was all partly because of this god. Your Majesty, please give me 50 Holy Spirit tier Faith Divine Crystals and the Tritalent Sword Immortal's divine items. At this moment, Carol Moeli's voice came. Zhou came back to his senses. A low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade god spirit requires 50 Holy Spirit tier Faith Divine Crystals to revive. What about low-tier deity-level advanced-grade god spirits? He asked curiously, as he handed her 50 Holy Spirit tier Faith Divine Crystals. 100 Faith Divine Crystals. A mid-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit would require 200 Holy Spirit tier Faith Divine Crystals. A mid-tier deity-level intermediate grade god spirit would require 500 Holy Spirit tier Faith Divine Crystals, and a mid-tier deity-level advanced grade god spirit would require 1,000 Faith Divine Crystals. High-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirits would require 2,000 Holy Spirit tier Faith Divine Crystals. High-tier deity-level intermediate grade god spirits would require 5,000 Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals, and high-tier Deity level advanced grade God Spirits would require 10,000 Life Form Faith Divine Crystals. Carol Moeli replied. Zhou mouth fell open. Resurrecting a high-tier Deity level advanced grade actually required so many Faith Divine Crystals? Zhou exclaimed in his heart. Originally, he had used a day to obtain hundreds of Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals, and felt that he was already quite rich. Only now did he know that the Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals in his hands were actually not enough to revive a high-tier Deity level elementary grade God Spirit. I have to expand the scale of my war in order to obtain more Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals. After Zhou came back to his senses, he thought to himself, only by expanding the scale of the war and killing more and more fog monsters could more Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals drop under the huge number of fog monsters. The number of Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystals had been increasing in the past few days, which indeed proved this point. Chapter 776, Resurrecting the Tritalent Sword Immortal. Then, Carol Moeli came in front of the Flower Sword Immortal. Do you have the divinity item of the Tri-Element Sword Immortal? In your cultivation language, it's an item nurtured by his magic power? She asked. Yes. Flower Sword Immortal was stunned previously, but he hurriedly began to search his spatial ring and took out a jade pendant. This is the soul accumulating immortal jade given to me by Brother Luo. It was nurtured by Brother Luo for many years and was given to me later. Is that okay? Flower Sword Immortal said nervously. Sure. Carol Moeli sized up the soul accumulating immortal jade and nodded. Then, she turned around and went to the bed made of the divine tree specially used for resurrection. She placed the soul accumulating immortal jade on it and began the divine art ceremony of the great resurrection spell. Flower Sword Immortal. In a while, Her Excellency, the Goddess of Lives will descend. At that time, you can't offend Her Excellency. Zhou reminded. Her Excellency the Goddess of Life? Flower Sword Immortal was originally nervous about Tritalent Sword Immortal's resurrection, and was immediately shocked when he heard this. The Goddess of Life, one of the legendary 10 Master God tiers. He was also a saint-tier existence in their immortal Tao civilization. Such an existence could even casually suppress a high-level bloodline race with his own strength. Even if he was still worried about the resurrection of the Tritalent Sword Immortal, he lowered his head and did not dare to look up at the statue of the Goddess of Life again. Just as he lowered his head, boom! A terrifying God spirit pressure suddenly descended. At this moment, a tall, dignified, yet intimate and natural female figure appeared in the depths of the hearts of all the living beings within 100 kilometers. It was Her Excellency the Goddess of Life. The subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom had all seen this scene before, so they were not flustered this time. Instead, they looked at this goddess curiously and yearningly. However, no matter how they looked at it, they could not see what the Goddess of Life looked like. This made them understand a principle. God spirits could not be looked at directly. Carol Moeli, who was closing her eyes and chanting, suddenly opened her eyes slowly. He first glanced at Flower Sword Immortal before his gaze landed on Zhou. Then, he seemed to have discovered something and nodded with a smile. Not bad. Looks like you found the right path. He said. Thank you for your guidance previously, Your Excellency. Zhou hurriedly said. I was just mentioning it casually. To be honest, I'm also surprised that you found the right path. The Supreme Law. It's been a long time since I've seen a junior like you. The Goddess of Life sighed. Zhou felt that Her Excellency's words seemed to mean something, but he did not understand what Her Excellency was referring to. Just as he was about to mince his words carefully into a question, he saw the Goddess of Lives' gaze land on the soul accumulating immortal jade in front of him. Then, he waved his hand and sprinkled an emerald green divine power on the soul accumulating immortal jade. He saw a phantom being pulled out of thin air and landed on the soul accumulating immortal jade. Then, it gradually condensed into the figure of a young sword immortal, wearing a three-colored Taoist robe. He carried the three swords of heaven, earth, and man on his back and had a handsome face. It was the Trialent Sword Immortal Luo Yuan. Brother Luo. Flower Sword Immortal could no longer control his emotions. He rushed up and pounced on he as tears rolled down, soaking the other party's clothes. Luo Yuan's eyebrows twitched slightly. Then, he slowly raised his eyelids, revealing a pair of blank eyes. I am dead, aren't I? Luo Yuan was stunned. You were indeed dead. However, His Majesty ordered me to invite the god spirit I believe in to revive you. Carol Moeli stood aside and said calmly. At this moment, the goddess of life had already left. He, who had just been possessed by the goddess of lives looked a little pale. Fortunately, Zhou had just handed him a tonic for god spirits. He could sense that his physical condition was rapidly recovering. Thank you very much. After Luo Yuan understood the situation, he stood up to thank Zhou. You don't have to thank me. Thank the person beside you. Zhou waved his hand and pulled Carol Moeli away, leaving only Tritalent Sword Immortal and Flower Sword Immortal staring at each other in a daze. In a corner, Zhou pulled Carol Moeli here and stopped. Then, he let go of Carol Moeli's hand, which was a little red. Your Majesty, why should we leave? Carol Moeli was a little puzzled. Of course it's to give the couple, who have just experienced life and death, a space to be alone. Zhou said. Aren't the two of them men? Carol Moeli asked curiously. It was Zhou's turn to look at her strangely. Can't you tell that Flower Sword Immortal is a female sword immortal? Carol Moeli was stunned. Ah, female sword immortal. I've always thought that he was a male sword immortal? He began to doubt life. She's clearly a female sword immortal. You actually couldn't tell. Zhou shook his head. Then, he suddenly remembered that the god spirits of the two human empires seemed to have always thought that Flower Sword Immortal was a male sword immortal. It was the same for Carol Moeli. Zhou thought for a moment and understood why. It was probably because Flower Sword Immortal had used some secret technique to hide her gender, making the other god spirits think that she was a male sword immortal. However, facing the extremely powerful Sixth Senses Chaos human, Zhou, he could directly determine his gender from the perspective of Sixth Senses. Under such circumstances, the disguise mystic technique that he was very confident in was useless. The two of them chatted for a while before Flower Sword Immortal and Tritalent Sword Immortal walked over from behind. Thank you, Your Majesty of the Blazing Sun, for saving my life. If Your Majesty needs anything in the future, Your Majesty can tell me directly. I, Luo Yuan, will definitely come no matter if it's going up a mountain of blades or going down a sea of fire. Luo Yuan said seriously. I've already said that you should thank the person beside you. Zhou waved his hand and said indifferently. Luo Yuan and Flower Sword Immortal looked at each other and smiled intimately. Your Majesty, you saved my life, so I want to stay in Your Majesty's territory during the time Your Majesty, the King of 10,000 Kings, is active and contributing to Your Majesty's future war operations. Luo Yuan turned around and said solemnly to Zhou, What about Uncle Lu? Zhou was stunned before saying, I've already reported it to His Majesty. His Majesty agrees with me. Luo Yuan said. That's good. Welcome, Senior. Zhou immediately smiled. As for the god spirits who could help him, he naturally hoped that the more the better. What about Senior Flower Sword Immortal? Zhou looked at Flower Sword Immortal. The king fed me, so I share the worries of a king. I want to return to the Divine Sword Empire to help His Majesty. Flower Sword Immortal shook his head. The reason why His Majesty could agree to Luo Yuan's idea was because the King of the Blazing Sun had saved his life. For such a favor, Luo Yuan had to stay here to repay him. This was the bottom line of a sword immortal. He had to abide by it. Otherwise, he might not be able to think straight, and it might even cause his Sword Dao realm to stagnate. He, on the other hand, no longer had much to do with the King of the Blazing Sun, so he naturally had to return to the Divine Sword Empire. Zhou nodded. After that, Flower Sword Immortal did not stay any longer, and left through the spatial teleportation array. After the other party left, Zhou also lent Luo Yuan a set of low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine artifacts, making the other party stunned. Chapter 777 Upgrading the Territory. Zhou did not say anything else. He gathered all the god spirits in the territory and made up for the lack of divine artifacts for Vicky, Feng Luo, and the other god spirits who did not have a full set of divine artifacts. From there, they also had a divine artifact that matched their strength realm. As such, all the low-tier god spirits in Zhou's territory, who served him, had divine artifacts that were compatible with their strength realm. Zhou gave one reason for replenishing their divine artifacts. The divine artifact is lent to them. The goal was to welcome the increasingly serious war situation in the future. However, if they could make contributions in the future, they could choose to buy the divine artifacts they lent them by consuming military merits. Hearing this news, all the god spirits who had obtained the divine artifact were overjoyed. If a god spirit could have a full set of divine artifacts, he would have already surpassed most god spirits of the same level. And now, His Majesty has given them this opportunity. He had to grasp it. Then, Zhou called Wu Tu over and asked him about the Scarlet Forces that wanted to deal with him. Your Majesty, currently, the 3 Empire-level Scarlet Legions and the 40 Kingdom-level Scarlet Monster Army are scattered everywhere to gather troops. The other party seems to have heard of our reputation. If they don't gather enough troops to make them confident in sending troops in the short term, I'm afraid they won't easily lead troops to attack. Wu Tu said respectfully. Keep an eye on them. Zhou pondered for a few seconds and said, in addition to the 3 Empire-level Scarlet Legions and the 40 Kingdom-level Scarlet Legions, it was impossible to gather 2 billion troops in a short period of time no matter how much they raised. As long as they mobilized no more than 2 billion troops, did not have any powerful war machines, or did not invite the true god tier to descend or other external forces, they were nothing to Zhou. Zhou was also cautious, so he asked Wu Tu to continue paying attention to them. Otherwise, other lords would probably not pay attention to them now. Then, Zhou and Wu Tu chatted for a while before Wu Tu left. After Wu Tu left, Zhou also walked out of the advanced grade Lord's Paradise and looked at the building in front of him. The next second, 4 trillion units of basic materials, 5,000 extraordinary tier mist cores, 1 million origin crystals, 20 million units of basic elemental gems, 30 million units of high-level elemental gems, and 10 extraordinary tier territory tokens disappeared. Boom! A golden light immediately enveloped the entire advanced grade Lord's Paradise. A moment later, the golden light dissipated. The advanced grade Lord's Paradise, that was clearly much larger and decorated with a more luxurious and dignified style, appeared in front of Zhou. A text notification appeared. Congratulations! Your advanced grade Lord's Paradise has been upgraded to an extraordinary tier advanced grade building. Your territory has been upgraded to extraordinary tier advanced grade. Your extraordinary tier intermediate grade 5 elements amplification array has been upgraded to the extraordinary tier advanced grade 5 elements amplification array. Territory token endurance increased to 10 billion/10 billion. Your territory has expanded to 500,000 km times 500, 000 km times 100, 000 m. All fog monsters within the territory of the new territory have been expelled. Scarlet fog will not appear in any of your territories. You have received an upgrade reward. Basic building blueprint treasure chest, extraordinary tier advanced grade. Lord talent notification. The upper limit of the enemy lord's power, that you can induce insight defection, has been increased to high tier deity level intermediate grade. Lord talent hint. Your monster ranches can be upgraded. Lord talent hint. Your mysterious caravan faction has increased. Lord talent hint. The strength of the clergy in your Goddess of Lives shelter has increased. I finally advanced to the extraordinary tier advanced grade territory. A smile appeared on Zhou's face. He could not help but sigh when he thought of the 30 million high-level elemental gems needed to upgrade. A total of 16 kingdoms high-level elemental gem resources, coupled with the remaining high-level elemental gem resources, were needed to gather the number of high-level elemental gems needed for this upgrade. He wondered how far his upgrade requirements would develop in the future. Thinking of this, He suddenly opened the next requirement to upgrade his territory nervously. Then his expression turned bitter. Construction upgrade. 1 trillion units of wood. 1 trillion units of fine sand. 1 trillion units of metal. 1 trillion units of stone. 5,000 extraordinary tier mist core. 1 million origin crystals. 10 million units of basic elemental gems. 10 million units of thunder elemental gems. 10 million units of life elemental gems. 10 million units of death elemental gems. 10 extraordinary tier cities. 100 extraordinary tier lifestyle professionals. 10,000 extraordinary tier military professionals. 10 extraordinary tier territory tokens. Zhou Zhou looked at the upgrade request. I can satisfy the quantity of basic materials, mist cores, origin crystals, basic elemental gems, thunder elemental gems, lifestyle professionals, and military professionals. However, isn't the number of life elemental gems and death elemental gems required too high? He could not help but complain. Then, he looked at the number of life elemental gems and death elemental gems in his king's treasure box. He still had more than 1 million life elemental gems and more than 2 million death elemental gems after leveling up. As for the thunder elemental gems, which were also high-level elemental gems, they were also one of the loots of the violent storm demon spirit and were produced in large quantities through the monster ranch every day. Therefore, these thunder elemental gems were an endless mineral to Zhou Zhou, so he had never worried about them. If only I still had the mineral source of the life elemental gem and the death elemental gem. Zhou Zhou thought regretfully. However, such things depended on luck. It was not something he could have just because he wanted it. For example, the Lords of the Star Alliance under his command. They would bring a new batch of fog monsters over every day and let Zhou Zhou's subordinates check if there were any loots worth high value among the loots dropped by these new monsters. This way, they could be placed in the monster ranch to be nurtured. This was how the mechanical fear falcon and the iron-eating bear came about. It was a pity that during this period of time, while the loots dropped from the new fog monsters they sent over were varied, which had no lack of elementary, intermediate grade, and even advanced grade soldier types. This was naturally nothing to Zhou Zhou, who had the special soldier type, King of Yellow Gold, and the kingdom-level Violent Storm Spirit. The only time the most valuable loots appeared was a special soldier type class change certificate, special soldier type recruitment books, and some drops needed by other special soldier types called the Mammoth Halberd Soldiers. Wu Xian reported these loots to Zhou Zhou as soon as they appeared. After Zhou Zhou found out, he immediately came over to understand the professional characteristics of this Mammoth Halberd Soldier. Chapter 778 Upgrading the Gate of Summoning. Upgrade of the Lord Talent. In the end, Zhou Zhou realized regretfully that this special soldier type, called the Mammoth Halberd Soldiers, actually overlapped with the characteristics of the Yellow Gold King class, which was also a special soldier type. They were all melee soldier type class, and were good at close combat. Their defense was extremely strong. If he had to squeeze out a few points of difference, it could only be said that the Mammoth Halberd Soldiers were more in line with the concepts of land tank and charge heavy tank. They had strength but not agility. As for the King of Yellow Gold, even though they were slightly inferior to the Mammoth Halberd Soldiers in terms of defense and strength, they were better at land, sea, and aerial combat, without any shortcomings on the battlefield. Especially in aerial combat, the King of Yellow Gold could fly into the sky and block the attacks of the enemies from the sky, thereby protecting the Violent Storm Spirit mages behind them in a more comprehensive manner. As for the Mammoth Halberd Soldiers, they could not fly. They could not make up for their lack of agility, even if they had the wings of the Fear Falcon on them. This was undoubtedly very fatal. This was because in Zhou Zhou's current thoughts, close combat soldier types were to be meat shields for the Violent Storm Spirit to successfully cast spells. His Violent Storm Spirit was the main firepower that determined the outcome of the battlefield after all. Zhou Zhou might only adjust their roles if his melee soldier type's battlefield performance could surpass mages like the Violent Storm Spirit. Therefore, after understanding the class characteristics of the Mammoth Halberd Soldiers, Zhou decided to imprison the fog monsters that dropped the class change certificate and recruitment books for collection. As for the monster ranch, King of Yellow Gold would continue to occupy it. It could be seen from this that he really had to rely on luck if he wanted to find the required monster loots in the vast fog monsters. However, Zhou was not in a hurry. He could take his time since he was very patient. Speaking of which, other than the Life Elemental Gem and the Death Elemental Gem that troubled Zhou, the other two requirements, 50 Extraordinary Tier Territory tokens, and the upgrade of the kingdom to an intermediate kingdom, were nothing to him. Bai Yin had taken down 16 people of foreign race kingdoms in a day. These 16 kingdoms alone provided 24 Extraordinary Tier Territory tokens. He had just used 10 pieces, so he still had 14 pieces left. He still needed 36 more. At this rate, 2 more Operation 16 Kings will do. Zhou thought. There were not many things in the High Continent, just a lot of countries. He could just attack the Crimson Kingdom if he was worried that he would cause trouble. There was no need for a reason for the lords of all races to attack the Scarlet Lords. Coincidentally, there is only the condition of conquering 2 beginner kingdoms that are not under the Crimson Overlord's command, 0/2, that has not been fulfilled among the conditions for my beginner kingdom to advance to an intermediate kingdom. When my kingdom is upgraded to an intermediate kingdom, my territory can also be directly upgraded to epic tier elementary grade. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, Zhou thought. Then, he came to the Gate of Summoning and spent 200 billion units of basic materials and 5,000 extraordinary tier mist cores to upgrade it to extraordinary tier advanced grade. A text notification appeared. Congratulations, your Gate of Summoning has been upgraded to an extraordinary tier advanced grade building. You can summon plus 700 subjects every day. You will definitely summon 500 professionals every day among the subjects. Prompt. Under the influence of the unique title of the race, Glory of the Pioneer 6, you can summon 18,800 subjects a day. You will definitely summon 507 professionals every day among the subjects. Zhou's expression did not change after reading it. After the Gate of Summoning was upgraded to Extraordinary Tier Advanced Grade, the number of basic summoning subjects had reached a total of 2,800. After being enhanced by the Glory of the Pioneer 6, it directly doubled to 18,800 people. However, even though there were almost 20,000 subjects, this number was still not even a fraction of the number of subjects attracted by the beauty talent. Naturally, he was not excited. Still, it was better than nothing. Then, he looked at the upgrade requirements for the Gate of Summoning. Construction upgrade. 100 billion units of wood, 100 billion units of fine sand, 100 billion units of metal, 100 billion units of stone, 100,000 extraordinary tier mist cores. Territory level upgraded to epic tier elementary grade. Zhou took a look and turned to leave, returning to the advanced grade Lord's Paradise. At the same time, he asked Aaliyah to call Mu Gu, Zheng Fugui and Carol Moeli over. A moment later, in a study room, the 3 of them came in front of Zhou. Greetings, Your Majesty. Mu Gu and the others said respectfully. Same old rules. Tell me about your respective improvements. Zhou said directly. Mu Gu was the first to stand up out of habit. Your Majesty, my current strength is already that of an extraordinary tier advanced grade rancher. I already have a total of 15,000 monster shepherds under my command. In addition, the number of monster ranches in my ranchland continent has also increased from 600 to 700 today. Moreover, the maximum capacity of each monster ranch has increased from 600,000 to 700,000, and the total area of my ranch continent has increased from more than 1 million square kilometers to more than 1.5 million square kilometers. Mu Gu reported. Zhou smiled and nodded. It had to be said that every increase in the level of the monster ranch would bring a huge increase in strength to his territory. 490 million fog monsters would be appearing in Mu Gu's 700 monster ranches tomorrow. With so many fog monsters, and the enhancement of his King of Loots, The production of the monster ranches would reach an astonishing level tomorrow. The more he thought about it, the more obvious the smile on Jojo's face became. He was even looking forward to tomorrow. The 100 new monster ranches will all be used to nurture the violent storm demon spirits. Jojo pondered for a few seconds and said, "The last 100 monster ranch spots were all given to the king of yellow gold. This time, he would give it to the violent storm spirit." The violent storm spirit was his true main force and confidence in starting a war after all. "Yes, your majesty," Mugu said respectfully. Then, he retreated to the three of them. Zhang Fugui slowly stood up. "Your majesty, the number of our mysterious merchant has increased from 80,000 to 100,000. The number of carriages transporting goods has also increased to 50,000. In addition, the strength of all our mysterious merchant has also increased to extraordinary tier advance grade. The internal space of each mysterious merchant's mysterious business ring has also increased from the original 2 million cubic meters to 3 million cubic meters." Zhang Fugui said with a smile. Jojo acknowledged. Finally, it was Carol Moella's turn. At this moment, she had already recovered from the Great Resurrection spell ceremony. Her face had regained its rosy color, and she looked holy and stunning. "Your Majesty, the shelter of the Goddess of Life has also been upgraded to the extraordinary tier advance grade. Currently, the shelter of the Goddess of Life has a total of 15 million clergymen, 15 million priests, 15 million nuns, and 15,000 life paladins. And my strength has also jumped to the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade," Carol Moeli said. Jojo acknowledged. Even though the god spirits in his territory already had high-tier deity level existences, Carol Moeli would definitely not be able to revive with her current strength if such an existence died. However, there was no choice. He could only take things slow. Chapter 779 Two Great Empire Tier Soldier Types of the Human Race. What a pity. The small resurrection spell can't revive a god spirit that has just died. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to worry about the death of a high-tier deity level. Jojo sighed inwardly. This was something Carol Moeli had told him immediately when she advanced to a god spirit. The small resurrection spell could only revive ordinary life forms below the god spirit realm. Once a life form reached the god spirit realm, his ordinary body was turned into a divine body formed by divine power. The small resurrection spell was helpless against such a divine body. He could only rely on the great resurrection spell to revive. A moment later, on a vast drill ground, Jojo stood on the high platform and looked at Bai Yun and the 99,999 elite soldiers behind her. 689 legendary tier soldiers from the various armies of the Blazing Sun Kingdom stood right at the front of these elite soldiers. The remaining 90,000 odd soldiers were epic tier soldiers. Jojo nodded in his heart. He did not waste his breath and let all the soldiers out. They entered the spatial teleportation array and headed for the Night Empire. Then, they turned into other spatial teleportation arrays and headed for the Green Bronze Mausoleum. Black Dragon Mountain Range. This was a huge mountain range, winding for more than 5,000 kilometers. Its form was like an eastern black divine dragon lying on the vast ground. One could not help but exclaim at nature's uncanny workmanship. At this moment, Jojo and the others were at the core of the mountain range, looking at a squarish pit on the ground. The pit was deep and quiet. Just looking at it made one's blood run cold. A strange glint flashed across Jojo's eyes. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he seemed to hear a low and powerful dragon roar from it. There were some soldiers from the Night Empire guarding around Jojo and the others. At this moment, a man wearing the armor of a general of the Night Empire walked towards Jojo. His strength was at the epic tier. He had a square face and a friendly smile. "You're the famous emperor of the Blazing Sun, right? My name is Bai Chun. I'm in charge of guarding this place. Temple Lord Bai He has already conveyed his orders to me. From now on, this green bronze mausoleum will belong to you, Your Majesty of the Blazing Sun. If you didn't bring any soldiers specially to be stationed this time, I can help you continue to be stationed for a while until you send the soldiers in charge of guarding over. At that time, We can officially change hands, and I can go back to report. I really didn't bring any soldiers in charge of guarding this time. I'm afraid I'll have to trouble General Bai for a while more. Zhou also said politely. It's no trouble at all. This is the deepest part of the Black Dragon mountain range. The most dangerous fog monsters have long been eliminated by our night temple. What trouble would there be other than just standing around guarding it? Bai Chen smiled. He clicked his tongue in wonder. In just a few words, he was already certain that the other party was not a young and frivolous person. To a young man who could make such a name and status at such a young age, it was unbelievable that Zhou could have such a calm temperament. Heroes came from young people. He sighed. General Bai, has anything happened to this green bronze mausoleum recently? Zhou pointed at the cave below. No. Bai Chen shook his head and took the initiative to say, Your Majesty of the Blazing Sun, this is your first time here. Let me bring you around to take a look. Sure. Zhou acknowledged. Then, he called Bai Yin and the other soldiers, and asked them to follow behind him. Then, the two of them walked into the cave one after another, while the others followed closely behind. As the two of them walked, Bai Chen asked, How much does your Majesty know about this green bronze mausoleum? I'm ashamed. I only asked about the requirements to enter the green bronze mausoleum before coming. I didn't ask further. Zhou said. Haha, that's enough. The others are insignificant. Bai Chen smiled and said, This green bronze mausoleum is a tomb accidentally discovered by an expert of our human race, Zhou Rong, when he went deep into the Black Dragon mountain range to train. He sold this place to us because he's not a lord, and the green bronze mausoleum can only be opened by lords. Our human race has been in charge of this green bronze mausoleum for more than 2,000 years. In the past 2,000 years, this green bronze mausoleum has provided 26 special soldier types to our human race. It can be considered a great contribution. He sighed. Pretty good. Zhou nodded. Actually, it's only SOSO. Bai Chen shook his head. Even though special soldier types are precious, our human race is not so short of them. What our human race lacks are kingdom-level soldiers, and even empire-level soldiers, especially empire-level soldier types. As long as we humans have empire-level soldier types, our strength will increase significantly. Otherwise, even kingdom-level soldier types won't increase the strength of our human race much. Are there very few empire-level soldier types in our human race? Zhou asked curiously. Yes, very few. Our human race only has 2 empire-level soldier types. They are the Army Extermination Knights, nurtured by the Night Temple of our Night Empire. The other is the Fire Dragon Sword Immortal from the Divine Sword Empire's Fire Dragon Army. Moreover, it's extremely difficult to nurture these 2 empire-level soldier types. There are 2 difficulties in nurturing an Army Extermination Knight. One is that an Army Extermination Knight needs to pile up a large amount of resources to create an Army Extermination Knight. The second is, due to their special constitution, the Army Extermination Knight can only be an elite of our human race, the Virtuous Titan race. However, the Virtuous Titan race is only a small branch of the human race, with a population of about 100 million. Even if our human race helps it reproduce with all our might, they won't be able to produce a new population every year, let alone hire them to build an Army Extermination Knight Legion. As for Fire Dragon Sword Immortal, the requirements are even higher. It has 3 specific requirements. The first requirement is, require the Fire Dragon Sword Immortal to have a Fire Elemental Heavenly Spirit root. The second requirement is, the Fire Dragon Sword Immortal has to have at least 1 personal talent in the Sword Dao. The third and most difficult request, the Fire Dragon Sword Immortal has to possess the Sword Dao Heart. Bai Chen shook his head at the end. With the huge population of the human race, he could actually find some suitable talents for the first 2 requirements. However, the third Sword Dao Heart required such a talent to have the temperament and will that only true sword cultivators had. With such a will, the rarity of the owner of the Sword Dao Heart was almost equivalent to a genius with the aptitude to become a god. With the combination of the 3, The Fire Dragon Sword Immortal was even rarer than the Army Extermination Knight. Zhou clicked his tongue. He did not expect requirements to become a Fire Dragon Sword Immortal to be so ridiculously high. Chapter 780. Entering the Green Bronze Mausoleum. After walking for a full 15 minutes, the two of them finally arrived at a green bronze door. Zhou looked at the door, which was 2,000 to 3,000 meters tall and more than 1,000 meters wide. Its main color was bronze green, but in the middle of the door was a black dragon that looked like an Eastern dragon. The black dragon looked into the distance. Even though its face was dignified, it carried an obvious ferocious anger, as if it was angry at someone. It's said that legendary tier is a Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm black dragon from the immortal world. Later, it died on the high continent for some reason. Then its dragon body turned into this black dragon mountain range after its death. However, we've already sent people to investigate this black dragon mountain range from beginning to end. We realized that it's only a normal mountain range and is nothing special from the other mountain ranges. Bai Chun looked at the black dragon carving and said. Zhou nodded and placed his hand in a circular and ancient groove in the middle of the black dragon's stone gate. Then he felt a slight pain in his hand. A drop of blood flowed out and was absorbed by the black dragon's stone gate. Then, lines of notifications in black text slowly appeared in front of him. Green Bronze Mausoleum. Hint 1. Detected that you have the status of an official lord and the qualifications to enter the Green Bronze Mausoleum. Green Bronze Mausoleum. Hint 2. You can bring 100,000 soldiers into the Green Bronze Mausoleum together. Prompt. The strength of the 100,000 Green Bronze Knights and 1 Green Bronze General in the Green Bronze Mausoleum will be determined by the strength of you and the soldiers you lead. Do you want to enter the Green Bronze Mausoleum? Zhou did not confirm immediately. Instead, he looked at Bai Chun. There's no time to lose. I'll bring the soldiers into the Green Bronze Mausoleum first. He said. I'll bring troops to guard the vicinity. Bai Chun said. The Green Bronze Mausoleum was not dangerous, so he was not worried that His Majesty, the King of the Blazing Sun, would encounter any danger. Zhou nodded and did not waste any more time. After choosing Bai Yun and the other 100,000 soldiers in his heart, he saw them emit a faint green bronze light. Then, they disappeared from the spot. I hope this King of the Blazing Sun can drop the green bronze book at once. Bai Chun looked at the spot where Zhou had disappeared inside. If he could not drop the green bronze book at once, he could only wait for the next Green Bronze Mausoleum to open, which would be 10 years later. Inside the Green Bronze Mausoleum, after Zhou and the others entered, they realized that they were in a long corridor. This corridor was completely made of bronze, and bronze lamps that emitted the light of candlelight hung on the wall. Under the illumination of the light, Zhou and the others saw ancient and bloody murals engraved on the bronze on both sides of the corridor. Zhou walked over and looked at the murals. After looking at them for a while, he even touched the content of the murals. The moment he touched the mural, his eyes suddenly emitted invisible time fluctuations. His eyes became ancient, as if he had witnessed the changes in the world. Eye of Time. Activate. The next second, an illusory image that only Zhou could see appeared in his eyes. A huge shocking black dragon that meandered for thousands of miles descended from the sky and arrived on the high continent. Behind him was a huge white creature with a dog head, a human body and wings on its back. After the two of them came to the high continent, they each established an empire after many years of development. The Black Dragon Empire was called the Dragon Qin Empire. As for the huge white creature with a dog head, a human body, and wings on its back, it established the Canine Sealing Empire. The two empires had been fighting openly and covertly for many years, but there had never been a victor. Later on, the Dragon Qin Empire had gathered enough resources to advance to the Dragon Qin Divine Kingdom. The Lord of the Canine Sealing Empire discovered the other party's plan. Therefore, he used the spy lying in ambush in the Dragon Qin Empire to destroy the other party's Divine Kingdom promotion ceremony. The Lord of the Dragon Qin Empire was severely injured on the spot and died not long after. Even though the Lord of the Canine Sealing Empire had achieved his goal, they did not expect that the Dragon Sheen Empire, which had lost its lord, would counterattack crazily, coupled with it encouraging the other surrounding empires. The Lord of the Canine Sealing Empire and the Canine Sealing Empire had actually perished on the High Continent first. Not long after, the Dragon Sheen Empire, which had lost the protection of the Black Dragon, was destroyed by the joint attack of hundreds of surrounding kingdom-level lord factions. Later on, the descendants of the Dragon Sheen Empire scattered everywhere with the inheritance of the Dragon Sheen Empire. This green bronze mausoleum was one of the Empire's inheritances left behind by the Dragon Sheen Empire. So this is the origin of the green bronze mausoleum. Zhou eye of time gradually returned to normal. He touched his eyes, not expecting this personal talent of an archaeologist to work at this time. He did not mind and led by Yun and the other 100,000 soldiers to the end of the corridor. The soldiers present were either at the epic tier or the legendary tier. Therefore they were naturally extremely fast. After a while they arrived at the end of the corridor. At the end of the corridor was a flat green bronze tier land. The ground was made of ancient green bronze, and was carved with mountains, rivers, and mithril adamantine as river rocks. It looked magnificent and dignified. At the top of the sky, there were also arranged star meteors that emitted faint starlight. It was as if there were stars filling the sky suppressing the green bronze mausoleum. Zhou also saw their opponents on this trip. They were green bronze soldiers made entirely of ancient bronze. They wore standard armor and held all kinds of soldier-type weapons. Some of them were even riding green bronze ferocious beasts. Some were driving bronze carriages. Some were holding array discs. And there were even chi practitioners riding flying swords. In front of them was an existence more than 100 meters tall. It was wearing black general armor, and had dragon horns on its head, and a black dragon tail on its tailbone. Zhou looked at him. A text notification appeared. Name: Green Bronze General, Bai Ling, Strength Level, Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Introduction. The general guarding the Green Bronze Mausoleum. He was one of the trusted subordinates of the Black Dragon Emperor when he was alive. After his death, he led 100,000 Green Bronze Knights to protect this place day after day, year after year, waiting for their Black Dragon Emperor to be reborn. Loot's drop rate. 20 Legendary Tier Miss Cores drop rate. 100%. 1 Legendary Tier Advanced Grade Black Dragon Bloodline Armor drop rate. 1%. 1 Legendary Tier Advanced Grade Army Formation Skill Book. 10 Directional Invincible Army Formation. 1 Special Grade Treasure, Green Bronze Book, drop rate, 0. 1%. 1 Special Building Blueprint Black Dragon Blood Pool, drop rate 0. 1%. 1 Mid-Tier Deity Level Advanced Grade Black Dragon Remnant Soul, drop rate, 0%. Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw the other party's loot drop rate list. There was nothing worth noting about the other loots. What the hell was this mid-tier deity level advanced grade Black Dragon Remnant Soul? Could there be an accident? Zhou muttered in his heart. However, he had many trump cards in his hands, so he was not afraid of accidents. He would bring everyone out of this place through his return to the City Lord talent if all else failed. He had already tested it when he first entered. This green bronze mausoleum could not restrict him from using his return to the City Lord talent. Chapter 781 Battle of the Military Formation. Zhou stopped thinking about it. His gaze swept across the 100,000 Green Bronze Knights and the extraordinary tier advanced grade Green Bronze General. Then, a smile appeared on his face. There were 689 legendary tier Green Bronze Knights. The rest were all epic tier Green Bronze Knights. That Green Bronze General in the Black Dragon Bloodline armor was at the legendary tier elementary grade like him. It was not in vain that I brought all the legendary tier soldiers. Zhou looked at them. Then he took a step forward. It was as if he had touched a mechanism with this one step. Rumble. The bronze ground trembled. Dragon roars could be vaguely heard from under the bronze ground. It was as if a pure-blooded dragon had woken up from the bronze tier ground and was venting its anger at the outside world. At the same time, The green bronze general standing at the front of all the green bronze knights also slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were also of ancient bronze, and he looked a little dazed. At that moment he was staring at Zhou. The 100,000 green bronze knights behind him slowly opened their eyes. Then, they raised their bronze weapons almost at the same time, and pointed them at Zhou and the others. Those who barge into the green bronze mausoleum die, they said expressionlessly in unison. Facing this scene, Zhou did not feel nervous at all. This was because even though both sides were epic tier and legendary tier experts, moreover, the other party was a special soldier type. However, half of them were special tier soldiers, King of Yellow Gold, and the other half were kingdom-level soldiers, violent storm spirits. Coupled with the military merit exchange system, every soldier had a large number of skills. If both sides dared to fight, they would definitely win. Just as he was thinking, this green bronze general called by Ling suddenly made an offensive gesture. Then, he saw the 100,000 green bronze knights behind him charging towards Zhou, and the others with heavy and powerful steps. The green bronze earth was trembling slightly, giving the 100,000 green bronze knights an unstoppable aura. Attack! Destroy them! When Zhou saw this, he ordered expressionlessly, "Yes, your majesty." Bai Yin immediately led the subjects and all the soldiers to rush towards the other party. Just as both sides were running towards each other, the green bronze general suddenly made another hand gesture. Then, the formation of the 100,000 green bronze knights suddenly changed smoothly, forming a special array. Right on the heels of that, wisps of military formation with a murderous aura with traces of green bronze appeared from every green bronze knights and condensed in the sky. Finally, they condensed into a spirit of the military formation that was more than 3,000 meters tall. The spirit of this military formation was a general standing on a bronze chariot. In front of him was a horseman in soldier armor driving a carriage. Horseman was nothing special. The specialness was on this general, the spirit of the military formation. This general was wearing dignified and extravagant black dragon armor. He held a spear in his hand and carried a weapon box, a large shield, and an arrow on his back. He looked majestic, like an all-round king of war standing on a carriage and rampaging on the battlefield. Facing this scene, Bai Yin snorted. With a thought, a large amount of silver sword energy appeared on each soldier's body. Then, it quickly gathered and formed a huge figure of a mysterious swordsman who was 10,000 meters tall. He was wearing a silver raincoat and holding a silver divine sword. His entire body was wrapped in silver sword energy, enveloping the 100,000 extraordinary tier soldiers. It was the spirit of the small god army formation, Sura myriad spirit army formation, Sura swordsman. Kill! The soldiers on both sides roared and charged forward. Then, they quickly collided and fought crazily, inviting the other party's death. Clang! The sword and the spear collided. The two spirits of the Sura swordsman and the invincible general were also officially fighting under the charge and shouts of the soldiers. Right on the heels of that, this invincible general was directly sent flying by the Sura swordsman's sword. Even the 100,000 green bronze knights and the green bronze general were sent flying uncontrollably before falling heavily to the ground. Even though these green bronze knights and the green bronze general did not die directly because of the invincible army formation, it also weakened their aura. On the other side, the Sura swordsman was still expressionless. He held the silver divine sword in his hand and quickly walked towards the spirit of the invincible military formation. Thick spatial power erupted, forming a spatial passageway with endless suction behind it, directly sucking it into the spatial rift. The green bronze generals and green bronze knights forcefully stood up one after another. Then, they rode on the spirits of the invincible military formation and stabbed their spears back into their weapons boxes. Then, they pulled out the bows on their backs and shot an arrow at the Sura swordsman. The bow was like a thunderbolt. This sudden arrow shot over extremely quickly and arrived in front of the Sura swordsman in the blink of an eye. However, the Sura swordsman still reacted. It raised its hand extremely quickly and waved a Shinra sword chi. The Shinra sword chi easily cut through the ancient bronze arrow and shot towards the spirit of the invincible army formation. When the spirit of the invincible military formation saw this scene, it immediately threw away the bow and arrow in its hand. Then, it pulled out the huge green bronze shield on its back, and in the blink of an eye, posed in front of it in a perfect defense posture, perfectly protecting the body of the spirit of its military formation, and the 100,000 green bronze knights and green bronze generals inside. Seeing this scene, Zhou seized the opportunity to raise his hand and activate Insight Defection. An invisible fluctuation instantly covered the 100,000 green bronze knights and the green bronze general. A text notification appeared. Prompt: you have activated your Lord's exclusive talent, Insight Defection. Insight Defection has taken effect. Lord Talent Notification. A total of 24,879 epic tier green bronze knights and 121 legendary tier green bronze knights have betrayed their Lord faction and become your loyal subordinates. A smile appeared on Zhou's face. This was why he brought so many top soldiers over. He wanted the result of this Insight Defection. More than 24,000 epic tier soldiers and 121 legendary tier soldiers. The military strength of the army he had with him now was weak. At the same time, just after his Insight Defection succeeded, the spirit of the invincible army formation instantly dissipated, revealing the 75,000 green bronze knights and green bronze generals inside. As for the 25,000 green bronze knights that he had Insight Defection on, Zhou had already ordered them to retreat the moment he succeeded. The remaining green bronze knights clearly could not react for a moment in the face of the Shinra sword chi that had already flown into their faces. In the next moment, boom! This sword chi that was equivalent to a low-tier deity-level intermediate grade god spirit smashed into these green bronze knights, shattering more than 1,000 of them on the spot. The nearby green bronze knights were also affected by the sword chi, and their bronze bodies more or less became a little incomplete. The green bronze general wanted to control the crowd control army to counterattack again. However, the Sura swordsman walked forward again and slashed at them again. Boom! The bronze ground trembled. Another 1,000 green bronze knights were shattered. The Sura swordsman did not show any mercy after gaining the upper hand. He slashed down again and again, killing these green bronze knights in the blink of an eye. The last strike. He decapitated the green bronze general with a single slash. The green bronze general's eyes widened slightly before he slowly closed them. The battlefield returned to calm. Chapter 782 Book of Silver and Dragon Transformation. Pool the Sura swordsman swept his gaze across the battlefield. After confirming that he had not missed any green bronze knights, his body turned into countless silver sword chi and gradually dissipated, revealing Bai Yun and the other 100,000 elite soldiers inside the spirit of the military formation. Bai Yun left the soldiers and walked to the green bronze general. She picked up his head and body and turned around to return to Zhou. Your Majesty, the enemy has been defeated. Bai Yin put down the green bronze general's corpse and said respectfully, go clean up the battlefield. Zhou acknowledged. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yin said respectfully and turned to leave. When Zhou saw this, his gaze landed on the green bronze general's corpse. He pondered for a long time and finally raised his right hand, preparing to retrieve this guy's loot. Soon, the green bronze general's corpse quickly turned into a large amount of loot and flew into his king's treasure box. At the same time, Zhou also looked at the text notification in front of him. Lord Talent Notification. Your loots have been enhanced by the King of Loots, Perfect Loots. Grade +1. Title hint. Your loots have been affected by the title of the strongest lord. The number of loots has increased by 150%. Lord Talent Notification. You have obtained Perfect Loots, 50 Divine Crystals, Low-Tier Deity Advanced Grade. 3 sets of Low-Tier Deity Advanced Grade Black Dragon Bloodline Divine Artifact Outfits. 3 Soldier God Battle Formation Skill Books, Low-Tier Advanced Grade. 3 Silver Book, Special Tier. 3 Dragon Transformation Pool Special Building Blueprints, Special Tier. 1 Black Dragon Remnant Soul, high-tier deity level advanced grade. Zhou began to check the loots. There was naturally no need to mention the divine crystals and the low-tier advanced grade divine artifact outfits. The Soldier God Battle Formation Skill Book was an upgraded version of the 10-directional Invincible Battle Formation. It could summon the spirit of a military formation with the strength of an advanced grade low-tier deity, with just 100 legendary tier soldiers and 100 million epic tier soldiers. The abilities that the weapon god had were very comprehensive, whether it was bows, spears, shields, swords, daggers, or even abilities like controlling chariots. The spirit of the military formation, the soldier god could perfectly master and use them on his opponent. Moreover, its consumption was extremely low. Manipulating the spirit of such a military formation for an hour only required 1 low-tier deity advanced grade god spirit. An hour was enough for an existence with the combat strength of an advanced grade low-tier deity to do many things. This was a military formation that was better than the small God Sura Myriad Spirit Army formation in terms of combat strength and endurance. Zhou decided to send it to Bai Yun, Wu Xian and Luo Sheng. The first two were naturally geniuses in military formations. As a ghost god general, Luo Sheng also had a very high understanding and talent in military formations. Coupled with the high-level secret manual of the hero inheritance and the book of the god spirit he had recently given him, giving the other party a chance to learn this higher-level military formation was their last choice. Zhou did not learn any of them. As a lord, he would not go to the battlefield often after all. He almost had no use for this military formation. Moreover, there was a chance that he would be able to directly master the abilities of his subordinates through the Lord Shop or the King's Lord talent in the future. Since that was the case, there was actually no need for him to keep it to learn. After making up his mind, he looked at the next loots. Treasure name, Book of Silver. Treasure grade, special tier, treasure effect. Fuse it with the territory stone tablet, and you can specify the quality of a soldier type in the territory +1. It cannot exceed the kingdom level soldier type. Treasure description, a top grade rare treasure that can increase the quality of soldier types. It is extremely loved by thousands of lords. When Zhou saw this information, he immediately revealed a look of joy, as expected of the Book of Silver, that had been enhanced by the King of Loots. Now he could actually strengthen his soldier type to a kingdom-level soldier type. This was much stronger than the Green Bronze Book. The only enhancement target in Zhou's heart was naturally the King of Yellow Gold. The King of Yellow Gold's current performance on the battlefield was quite satisfactory to him. Not only could it resist and fight, but Zhou had no reason to refute if the Book of Silver was used to strengthen it after all. As for the other 2 books of silver, Zhou planned to keep them for now and wait until he encountered a suitable target in the future. Then, he looked at the 3 identical special building blueprints. Building blueprint name, Dragon Transformation Pool. Building blueprint level, special. Building blueprint effect, pure bloodline. Non-pure-blooded dragon life forms with dragon bloodline can purify the dragon bloodline in their bodies through the baptism of the Dragon Transformation Pool and advance to a pure-blooded dragon. Materials needed to make the Dragon Transformation Pool. Pure-blooded dragon blood of low-tier deity level elementary grade at the very least. Pure-blooded dragon soul of low-tier deity level elementary grade at the very least. Low-tier deity level elementary grade fruit. Scarlet dragon fruit. Low-tier deity level elementary grade medicinal herbs. Blood dragon wood. Low-tier deity level elementary grade medicinal herbs. 9-leaf divine flower. Low-tier deity level intermediate grade fruit jade exquisite. Building blueprint description. One of the inheritance treasures of the dragon race. It is an important bloodline building for the dragon race to increase the number of their members and continue the inheritance of the race. It's actually a building blueprint for purifying the dragon bloodline. Zhou raised his eyebrows. He thought for a moment, and suddenly remembered that this building was also useful to his territory. After all, even though he had a pure-blooded dragon, he also had the 100 drake seeds that the Dragon Lady Lord had sent over to buy his kingdom token. In addition, the other party would send over 50 drake cubs tomorrow. These were all good seedlings that could be promoted to pure-blooded dragons. He just did not know how many pure-blooded dragons this dragon transformation pool could create after he built it. Then he looked at the last loot. Black Dragon Remnant Soul. Treasure name, Black Dragon Remnant Soul. Treasure grade, high-tier deity level advanced grade. Treasure effect. The remnant soul of the Black Dragon Emperor who had fallen into a dormant state. He was once the founder of the Dragon Qin Empire. Later, during the Divine Kingdom Advancement Ceremony, he was assassinated and severely injured by a spy planted in the empire by the Canine Sealing Empire. Not long after, he died completely. The descendants of the Dragon Qin Empire were unwilling to let the ancestor leave just like that. So they used the 99 life wheel reincarnation restriction technique to split the Black Dragon's soul into 81 portions and placed them in the 81 green bronze mausoleums. They also sent a portion of soldiers to guard the guardian mausoleums and wait for the future resurrection of the Black Dragon Emperor. Treasure description: the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul is awakening. Zhou pupils constricted. Without thinking, he threw the 3 remnant souls of the Black Dragon Emperor into the distance. However, not long after he threw it out, he saw 3 palm-sized remnant souls of the Black Dragon Emperor suddenly hover strangely in the sky of the green bronze mausoleum. Countless black energy turned into thick and dignified black dragons. They swept over from all directions. Some simply appeared from the void. Then, they surged into the remnant souls of the 3 Black Dragon Emperors like whales. The corporeal pressure of a high-tier deity level, and the pressure of the pure-blooded dragon bloodline, swept in all directions with an invincible aura. Chapter 783: The Awakened Remnant Soul of the Black Dragon Emperor. In the blink of an eye, this majestic aura enveloped Zhou, Bai Yun, and the other 100,000 soldiers. However, everyone was a dragon slayer. Facing this physical bloodline pressure, not only did they not bend down from the pressure, but the aura on their bodies suddenly increased, and their eyes became sharper. X3. 3 low and surprised voices sounded from the remnant souls of the 3 Black Dragon Emperors. Right on the heels of that, the 3 palm-sized remnant souls of the Black Dragon Emperor expanded rapidly with the help of a large amount of natural energy. 10 meters, 100 meters, 1,000 meters, 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers. When they increased to more than 1,000 kilometers tall, the bodies of the 3 Black Dragon Emperors gradually stopped growing. Such a shocking scene made Zhou and the others, who looked up at the Black Dragon Emperor's divine body, speechless. It was magical. This green bronze mausoleum seemed to be augmented by a portion of the law of space, so much so that the Black Dragon Emperor's body had expanded to such an extent. Its size seemed to be able to increase with it, and it would not restrict the Black Dragon Remnant Soul's body at all. I'm very satisfied. In the sky, the Black Dragon Emperor's low and dignified voice suddenly sounded. I don't know how you did it. However, if you can create 3 more remnant souls like me, I can promise you that I can help you build a new empire that belongs to your human race. Before I died, I remember that there were only 5 Empire-level Lord factions in your entire human race. I think the condition I raised is already quite superior. When Zhou heard this, he had to admit that he was tempted. However, he quickly forgot about this temptation. If you don't give me any practical benefits, why are you talking about Hook 8? Where did your habit of flattery come from? Something practical. Zhou said directly. The Black Dragon Remnant Soul was silent for a while, as if it did not expect this person to be so direct. He fell silent for a few seconds before saying, "There aren't many practical benefits in this green bronze mausoleum. Those green bronze knights have also been defeated by you. The loots on them have also been taken away by you. I'm only a remnant soul now. I have nothing to give you. However, if you promise me, I can tell you the location of the other green bronze mausoleums, and the way to control them." At that time, I only wanted my dragon soul. As for the other treasures of the Dragon Qin Empire in the green bronze mausoleum, You can take them all. How about that? That sounds good. Zhou Zhou pretended to be deep in thought, while raising his vigilance to the highest level. This was because just as he tried to agree to the other party's request, his epic tier lord talent intuition suddenly gave him a huge warning sign. This meant that even though the other party's words sounded good, there was actually great danger hidden. Old Silver Coin's black dragon, Zhou Zhou cursed in his heart. If it were any other lord, they might really not be able to resist the other party's temptation and fall into his trap. Fortunately, he had a lord talent like intuition, which could avoid danger. Just as he was thinking about how to restore the old Silver Coin's black dragon, an urgent alarm suddenly sounded in his heart. At the same time, the regal sage Dao sword at his waist vibrated crazily. Boom! A huge explosion shook. The entire green bronze mausoleum was shattered at this moment. Even in the outside world, the entire Black Dragon mountain range shook violently. The collapse of the mountain happened everywhere. Fearful roars came from the monsters, streams were cut off, and the beast tide surged at this moment. The entire Black Dragon mountain range was in chaos. What happened? Bai Chun, who was leading troops to guard the green bronze mausoleum, was stunned when he saw this scene. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation, after guarding the green bronze mausoleum for so many years. Oh no! Your Majesty of the Blazing Sun. He suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed as he looked at the entrance of the green bronze mausoleum. Inside the green bronze mausoleum, after the aftershock of the explosion and the dust dissipated, he saw a human and 3 black dragons confronting each other from afar. The person was naturally Zhou Zhou. At this moment, he was unharmed, but his emperor dragon robe fluttered in the wind. He looked coldly at the 3 black dragon remnant souls in front of him. These 3 black dragon remnant souls were naturally the remnant souls of the black dragon emperor. At this moment, they were looking at Zhou Zhou and the regal sage Dao sword that was blocking he. The regal sage Dao sword was like an incomparably sturdy wall, blocking their thoughts of taking another step forward. The remnant souls of the 3 black dragon emperors looked at the sword, and then at Zhou Zhou. They suddenly laughed softly. Then, their laughter became louder and louder. In the blink of an eye, it spread throughout the entire dilapidated green bronze mausoleum. Even the Black Dragon mountain range outside the green bronze mausoleum, and even further away could be heard. The remnant soul of the Black Dragon Emperor in the middle looked at Zhou Zhou, as if he was looking at a peerless treasure. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Chaos human bloodline, original spirit race bloodline, light sacred dragon bloodline, and this regal sage Dao sword that protects its master. You, a human, actually occupy so many of the world's top treasures? What a waste! What a waste! If I possess your body, not to mention dominating the high continent, I would even have the guts to fight for the Lord of all races. I really didn't expect this. Back then, Hound Feng and I came to the high continent from the immortal world. We originally only wanted to become lords and obtain the recognition of the supreme while in the Lord War for supremacy, thereby advancing further. I'm only thinking about the position of the Lord of all races, but I know that I have no hope at all facing those top-notch lords and veteran race civilizations. I didn't expect. Now, I actually see my hope of achieving the Tao from you. The heavens are helping me. Ha 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 ha. Give up resisting. As soon as he finished speaking, the remnant soul of the Black Dragon Emperor in the middle raised its head and roared. Then it bit Zhou Zhou again. A terrifying pressure swept over, as if the air had become as heavy as a mountain. Zhou Zhou's expression turned cold. Then, he activated the king's innate ability without hesitation and augmented all of Guoqiao's strength on himself, increasing his strength to the low-tier deity level intermediate grade. Then, he used Guoqiao's low potential to directly activate the power of the Dragon Slayer, allowing the strength enhanced on him to jump to the high-tier deity level intermediate grade. At this moment, Guoqiao's strength, coupled with Zhou Zhou's own strength, made Zhou Zhou quickly realize that his current combat strength was one of the best even among high-tier deity levels. Then with a thought, he recalled the regal sage Dao sword that was protecting its master. Then, he held the regal sage Dao sword, and slashed at the remnant soul of the Black Dragon Emperor that was rushing towards him with all his might. Chapter 784 Fighting the Remnant Soul of the Black Dragon Emperor 1. The Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul, sixth senses, was also very shocking. He immediately felt that there was something wrong with the power of this strike, and that it might severely injure him. Therefore, he immediately turned around and dodged this attack without thinking. He looked down at Zhou after successfully dodging. You humans really have many surprising methods. But, and now? The Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul sneered. Then, the other two Black Dragon Emperor remnant souls behind, he flew over and flew side by side with the Black Dragon Emperor. The remnant souls of the three Black Dragon Emperors, with the strength of high-tier deity level advance, grade stared at Zhou with indifferent eyes. It was as if he was looking at a dead person. Facing this scene, Zhou first took out the pillar of the Empire puppet expressionlessly and summoned Gerard, who had the strength of a high-tier deity level intermediate grade. Then, he formed a seal with both hands and muttered something. Then his right hand suddenly slapped the void under his feet. The next second, a huge purple teleportation array appeared under Zhou's feet. Right on the heels of that, a huge snake with purple jade eyes and a snake body that was also more than 1,000 kilometers tall appeared from the teleportation array. It glanced at Zhou, and then looked solemnly at the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul. It was the high-tier deity advanced grade divine insect, the purple jade heavenly king snake god, that Zhou had summoned from the affinity of the poison god. The three high-tier deity level existences actually seemed to suppress the Black Dragon remnant soul, which also had three advanced grade high-tier deity level existences. The remnant souls of the three Black Dragon Emperors narrowed their eyes slightly as they watched this scene. He was a little surprised. Where did this kid come from? Not only did he have so many high-level bloodlines, but he could also rely on his legendary tier elementary grade strength to have so many high-tier deity level helpers. Could this be a son of a divine kingdom from some divine kingdom? He muttered in his heart. However, he was naturally not afraid. He was an existence that had almost successfully established its own divine kingdom back then. Even if it was only one, no, three remnant souls now, it would not be afraid of an existence at the level of a son of the divine kingdom. He stopped thinking about it, and his gaze landed on Zhou and the others. Looking at Zhou's expression, he could tell that he had no intention of giving up. Extremely stubborn. Forget it. I can still snatch your body even if I kill you, the remnant soul of the Black Dragon Emperor in the middle said. Then, the three Black Dragon remnant souls rushed towards Zhou and the others. Kill. Gerard knew that he relied on the existence of the pillar of the Empire puppet. As long as the pillar of the Empire puppet was not spoilt, he would not really die. At most, he would lose the divine power of this body. Therefore, he was not afraid at all when facing this Black Dragon remnant soul that gave he a lot of pressure. He directly raised his space-splitting blade, grinned and rushed towards it. However, even though his courage was commendable, there was still a huge difference in strength between the two sides. Even though Gerard had a high-tier deity-level divine artifact, he was still suppressed by the remnant soul of this Black Dragon Emperor. On the other side, the high-tier deity-level advanced grade purple jade, heavenly king snake god looked at the remnant soul of the other Black Dragon Emperor rushing towards it, and fear flashed in its purple jade eyes. Even though he was a top-notch divine goo, he still felt fear from his bloodline even though he was only a remnant soul facing an existence like the Black Dragon, who was born at the top of his bloodline. However, there was no suppression. This was because he had some Dragon Slayer characteristics to a certain extent as a divine goo summoned by Zhou. The next second, the purple jade heavenly king snake god suppressed the fear in its heart and let out a sharp hiss. Then, it pounced on the remnant soul of the Black Dragon Emperor. The two of them quickly fought in close combat. Even though their bodies were similar, and their realms were the same, the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul was clearly stronger than the purple jade heavenly king snake god. However, the purple jade heavenly king snake god had sharp poisonous teeth, and could inject soul venom into the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul, weakening its strength. Therefore, at this moment, the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul had some advantage in the beginning. However, gradually, the Purple Jade Heavenly King Snake God actually showed signs of turning the tables, making it look like the two sides were actually fighting back and forth. On Zhou side, at this moment, they were also fighting the Black Dragon Remnant Soul in the middle. The strength of a high-tier deity level intermediate grade, coupled with top-notch bloodlines like the Chaos Human Bloodline, the Light Sacred Dragon Bloodline, the Original Spirit Race Bloodline, and the 10,000 Gu Emperor Clan Bloodline. Chaos Intimidation, Chaos Breath, Light Sacred Dragon Armor, Light Sacred Dragon Crown, All Things Burn, Extreme Dragon Power, World Fisher, Thunder God Spear. He used all kinds of top-notch bloodline abilities at will to deal with this Black Dragon Remnant Soul. The more Zhou fought, the more satisfied he felt. He suddenly had an epiphany. Using chaotic origin power, above the God Spirit level, to use these top-notch bloodline abilities, was the correct way to open these top-notch bloodline abilities. In the past, his ability to use these top-notch bloodlines without reaching the God Spirit level had never displayed the true power of these abilities. At the same time, he realized the power of a command-type law skill. Just the Black Iron Tier Lord Talent King had caused his strength to soar to this extent. What if he comprehended the incomplete Lord Law skill behind it? What if he comprehended the Lord Law skill behind the extraordinary Tier King? Zhou could not imagine how much his strength would increase. At the same time, facing Zhou and the other Black Dragon Emperor's remnant souls, he was also a little shocked. He never expected that this human lord's strength could actually increase to such a level in a short period of time. The other party's original strength was only at the legendary tier elementary grade, but it could already do this. What would happen if he advanced to the God Spirit level? The more the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul thought about it, the greedier he looked at Zhou. I must take his body and use it as my new body. When the time comes, he could completely use this body as a basis to create a great undertaking that he didn't even dare to think about before. Moreover, he might even be able to counterattack the immortal world and wash away the humiliation he had suffered in the immortal world back then. At the thought of this, he no longer hesitated. Roar! He let out an earth-shattering dragon roar at the sky. The next second, the other two Black Dragon Remnant Souls suddenly shook off Gerard and the Purple Jade Heavenly King Snake God. Then they rushed towards this Black Dragon Remnant Soul and rushed into his body. Boom! An incomparable aura erupted from him. Then, the body of the Black Dragon Remnant Soul began to grow again. 1,000 kilometers, 2,000 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers, 5,000 kilometers, 7,000 kilometers, 9,000 kilometers. It was only when his dragon body expanded to 9,999 kilometers that he seemed to have reached a limit and stopped growing. At the same time, his aura and might had reached an extremely astonishing level. At this moment, it was as if it could tear through space with a gentle move of its sharp claws. A look could make a low-tier deity level, or even a mid-tier deity level stiffen. Chapter 785 Fighting the Remnant Soul of the Black Dragon Emperor 2. Roar! The Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul roared at the sky. The space inside the green bronze mausoleum suddenly shattered. Then, under the control of a huge divine power, it turned into a completely different deep black space in the blink of an eye. Reforge the space. I'm only a step away from refining the world. Zhou looked up at the Black Dragon Remnant Soul with a solemn expression. This guy's strength is probably infinitely close to the true God tier. He muttered. At this moment, the Black Dragon Remnant Soul, which was as huge as a pillar, slowly lowered its head and looked down at Zhou, the little worm. He looked at Zhou, and his eyes suddenly turned blood red. Two blood-colored pillars of light shot out of his eyes, enveloping Zhou in them at lightning speed. At this moment, Zhou suddenly felt that his soul was about to be forcefully pulled out of his body, and another unfamiliar and cold soul was about to take the opportunity to enter his body and become the new owner of this body. You want to possess me? Zhou expression turned cold. Haha. What's the use of your struggle? Back then, I held the Divine Kingdom Advancement Ceremony, and was already a true God-tier elementary grade existence. Even though I'm only a remnant soul now, my essence is still at the true God tier. What's so difficult about possessing a high-tier deity level like you? The Black Dragon remnant soul laughed. In fact, with his previous experience, he naturally wouldn't be so smug if it was just an ordinary possession. However, he knew that once he succeeded in this possession, his future would be unimaginably bright. Not to mention returning to the body of a life form and rebuilding the divine kingdom that he had not built back then. Even if he counterattacked the immortal world and became the lord of the immortal world, there was even a chance of becoming the lord of all races. Thinking of such a future, that was why the Black Dragon remnant soul was so excited. On the other side, facing such a dangerous situation, Zhou did not panic at all. He placed the regal sage Dao sword back at his waist and took out the sword of new dimension creation, holding it in his hand. The spatiotemporal region. In an instant, the blood-colored pillar of light that enveloped Zhou was isolated by the spatiotemporal region's independent world. Zhou immediately felt his soul steadily return to his body. The Black Dragon remnant soul's surprised voice came from the sky. His blood-red gaze swept across and quickly landed on Zhou in the spatiotemporal region, and the sword of new dimension creation in his hand. True God-tier divine artifacts? The Black Dragon remnant soul exclaimed. His voice was filled with unconcealable fanaticism and greed. True God-tier divine artifacts. It had to be known that even those true God-tier might not have a divine artifact of this level. Only those lords of the divine kingdom might have true God-tier divine artifacts. As for those true God-tier experts who had true God-tier artifacts, all of them were absolute experts among true God-tier experts. Even Master God-tier had to show a certain amount of respect to true God-tiers who had true God-tier artifacts. If it was a true God-tier advanced grade true God-tier who had a true God-tier divine artifacts that matched him, even Master God-tier would have to treat such an existence as an equal. This was because such a true God-tier already had the qualifications to fight a Master God-tier who had just entered the Master God-tier. Back then, when he held the Divine Kingdom Advancement Ceremony, if he had a true God-tier divine artifacts in his hands, he could protect his Divine Kingdom Advancement Ceremony while directly killing the attacking true God-tier, let alone that dog seal. A true God-tier with a true God-tier was that strong. Then, he suddenly realized something. Then, after a few seconds of silence, he suddenly used his dragon claws to tear at the space in front of him, wanting to open a spatial passageway to escape. This human lord had top-notch combat strength comparable to a high-tier deity level to begin with. Now that he had the help of this true God-tier divine artifacts, at this moment, this human lord was already far superior to him. If he wanted to fight him forcefully and possess his body, not only would he fail to possess it, but he would also lose his powerful remnant soul body. With my current remnant soul body, as long as I find another portion of the green bronze mausoleum and fuse with the incomplete dragon soul inside, I can restore the complete dragon soul divine body. At that time, I will have half of my strength at my peak. A true God-tier with half of his strength is also a true God-tier. At that time, even if this human lord has true God-tier divine artifacts, he won't be able to pose any threat to me. When the time comes, I can snatch his body, bloodline, and true God-tier divine artifacts. The Black Dragon remnant soul thought. However, in the next second, his expression suddenly turned ugly. This was because he realized that he actually could not break through the space he had created. How is that possible? My current strength is infinitely close to that of a true God-tier. How can I not open this space? The Black Dragon remnant soul looked at the space in front of it in disbelief. Then, he thought of something and looked at Zhou below. Zhou was looking at it with the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. On his right hand, blood-colored streams of light seemed to be half alive. They kept spinning and dancing in his palm, finally forming an impenetrable blood-colored cage. This cage was clearly in Zhou's hands. However, From the perspective of the Black Dragon remnant soul, which was once a true god tier, this cage had clearly imprisoned the entire space. It was the heaven-sealing void life concealment technique that Zhou had once obtained from the illusory fate race. Zhou had already used the heaven-sealing void life concealment technique to seal this world just now. The grade of the heaven-sealing void life concealment technique was so high that even the true god tiers of the mini top races who participated in the Broken Battle Axe event back then could not discover the illusory life race that was hiding with this method. Only the space-time true god tier and a few other master god tier existences happened to catch a glimpse of the world of the illusory life race. The Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul was naturally not something that a high-tier deity-level advanced grade remnant soul infinitely close to the true god tier could remove. You sealed you and me in this closed-off space that we can't leave. You shouldn't be trying to die with me. Which means, you have the method to leave this closed-off space. It seems. I can only try to kill you, the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul said in a low voice. Human Lord, you're too arrogant. Even if you have the true god tier divine artifacts, once I really attack with all my might and risk being seriously injured, you will only die at my hands. Oh, Zhou looked at him with some interest. Then let this king see the methods of a former true god tier like you. Aren't you afraid of death? The Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul could not help but ask when it saw Zhou's confident expression. This king just wants to experience what it's like to die. Zhou said sincerely. The Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul misunderstood Zhou. A little lord from the lowly slut race. He just doesn't know how high the sky is. It'll make you regret saying this. The Black Dragon remnant soul was really angry. Chapter 786 The Trump Card of the Dark Emperor's Remnant Soul. Summoning the Dark Holy Dragon Dafarosh. At this moment, the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul actually felt a sense of fearless confidence from this little bug. I'm a true god tier god spirit. He opened his dragon mouth and bit Zhou. However, Zhou casually slashed out a silver sword that was more than 10,000 kilometers long, splitting the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul in half. This Black Dragon remnant soul, which was infinitely close to becoming a true god tier, could not even withstand a single strike from Zhou. It's infinitely close to a true god tier, but it's only infinitely close to a true god tier. In front of the might of a true god tier, if you don't have any trump cards, you can say goodbye to this world. Zhou said coldly. The chaotic power source in his body had already reached the high-tier deity-level intermediate grade. Chaotic power source at this level could already perfectly use the power of the Sword of New Dimension Creation, which meant, at this moment, it already had the destructive power of a casual attack from a true god tier elementary grade. Still, it was not without flaws. Zhou sensed the promotion energy in his body. The sword had consumed 80% of his chaotic energy. The remaining chaotic power source would not be as powerful as before even if he could swing his sword again. He felt a dull pain in his chaos physique. He even felt like it was cracking and collapsing. He had a premonition. If he swung his sword again without any scruples, his body would directly collapse and he would die. However, his expression was calm, and he was not afraid at all. This was because he could sense it. Even if he used 20% of his chaotic power source to launch the next attack, this sword could still kill the remnant soul of the Black Dragon Emperor, whose strength had been greatly reduced. Courting death. You forced me. The Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul was enraged once again. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Sacred Ancestor, please show yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, the dragon soul pressure emitted by the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul rapidly decreased. At the same time, his body began to shrink rapidly. 9,000 kilometers, 8,000 kilometers, 5,000 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers. When the Black Dragon remnant soul's body shrunk to a height of 700 to 800 kilometers, he stopped shrinking. At the same time, the aura of another incomparably terrifying existence quietly appeared in this space. He didn't reveal a specific form. However, even an illusory body was more than 100,000 kilometers tall. And this was only because the reforged spatial world was more than 100,000 kilometers wide. Zhou looked at this existence and had a feeling. If he appeared in the real world, then his body would immediately expand to billions of kilometers in size. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he blotted out the sky. Soon when he appeared, all the light in the world seemed to have lost its meaning. The entire space fell into extreme darkness. Only the pair of dragon eyes that contained a deep black-purple light stared at the vast refining world, becoming the only source of light in this dark world. Legendary dragon, dark holy dragon, Zhou muttered. This existence that seemed to have gathered the extreme darkness of the endless heavens was the legendary dragon of the dragon race, the dark holy dragon. It was on the same level as the former extreme world-honored dragon and the light sacred dragon under Zhou. Of course, the same level here only referred to the bloodline level. In terms of strength, the light sacred dragon was only at the epic tier. Regardless of whether it was the extreme world-honored dragon or the dark holy dragon, they were both master god tier existences that had been famous for a long time. Even though his reputation was inferior to the 10 master god tiers, it was still much stronger than ordinary master god tier. Interesting. Ingesol's bloodline actually appeared on a human? The dark holy dragon Dafarosh looked at Zhou in wonder. Following that, he turned his gaze, wanting to investigate Zhou's past. Then, he seemed to have discovered something. His gaze landed on the regal Saint Dao sword at Zhou's waist, and he raised his brows slightly. He looked at the sword in silence for a long time, before finally suppressing the thought of investigating the other party's past. Divine Ancestor, please kill this human lord. Junior. Qin Wuxia, in the future, I will build the temple His Majesty needs wherever the Divine Ancestor can reach in the myriad worlds, and provide the Divine Ancestor with eternal faith. Even though the Black Dragon remnant soul Qin Wuxi's voice was very weak, his attitude was very firm. On the other side, Your Holiness Dafarosh. Zhou looked at the possessed Black Dragon remnant soul, and said politely, the Dark Holy Dragon was a legendary dragon of the dragon race, and the ancestor of all black dragons. It was naturally worthy of respect. However, the only bad news for him was, it was recorded in the legendary dragon secrets of the Light Sacred Dragon. The Dark Holy Dragon bloodline and the Light Sacred Dragon bloodline had never been on good terms. Unlike the extreme world-honored dragon, who could give the Light Sacred Dragon face and let him off, Zhou looked at the Dark Holy Dragon and had a bad feeling. However, he was not afraid. This was because his innate intuition and danger prediction did not warn him that danger would appear next. The owner of the Light Sacred Dragon's bloodline. Even though you and I can be considered to have a certain relationship, due to the contract, I have to attack you once. After one ill leave, life and death are up to fate. I hope you can handle it. The Dark Holy Dragon said calmly. Then, he saw a huge purple dragon eye suddenly appear above Zhou. The dragon's eye spanned thousands of square kilometers. From afar, it looked as if the heavens had opened their eyes. The next second, drops of black liquid flowed out of the dragon's eyes. Then more and more black liquid appeared. It was as if it was raining black. The rain fell on Zhou's body. Sizzle. Zhou's eyes narrowed. Traces of corrosion appeared on the Emperor Dragon robe he was wearing. Some parts of it even cracked. Every drop of rainwater can easily kill a god spirit. Zhou was secretly alarmed. The next second, crash. It was like a downpour. Dense black rain fell from the sky and covered Zhou's entire body. From the outside, Zhou's existence could not even be observed. At this moment, boom, a five-colored light erupted from the black rainwater and directly broke through the slanting black water pillar, forming an illusory sword domain formed by the five-colored five elements, sword chi in the surroundings. High-tier deity intermediate grade sword formation, great five elements sword formation. Even though this five elements sword array was originally an epic tier advanced grade sword array, it was only limited by Qi Zuanshan's cultivation back then. In fact, in the Sword Dao inheritance in his mind, there was a five elements sword array that led directly to the high-tier deity-level advanced grade. Zhou Zhou had previously obtained Qi Zuanshan's Sword Dao inheritance through the Lord Shop. Now that his strength had temporarily increased to the high-tier deity-level intermediate grade, he could naturally use this higher-level 5-element sword array. Chapter 787 Power of Final Nirvana. Breakthrough. Under the support of the 5-element sword array, the black rainwater that fell from the sky was finally isolated from the 5-element sword array. The 5-element sword array focused on defense. Zhou Zhou was not surprised that it could achieve such an effect. However, the dark holy dragon, which was standing in the sky, did not think so. He looked at Zhou Zhou in surprise. Sword Chi thread. How long has it been since the king of the blazing sun arrived in the high continent? He has already reached such a level. As a legendary dragon that had never died and reincarnated, he understood almost 90% of the matters in the myriad worlds after living countless years. He naturally understood the sword cultivator's realm of sword chi thread. One had to know that some sword cultivators might not be able to comprehend such a realm after living for thousands, or even tens of thousands of years. And once one comprehended this realm, normal life forms could kill gods above their level. Something as ridiculous as killing a high-tier deity-level expert could happen. It could be seen how terrifying Sword Chi Thread was. This king of the blazing sun had actually comprehended such a realm in such a short period of time after coming to the high continent. It truly surprised him. With such great comprehension, great opportunity and great will, it is no wonder he could obtain the attention of the extreme world-honored dragon, the light sacred dragon, and even the regal dragon. The dark holy dragon's eyes were deep. Legendary dragons almost never appeared in the eyes of life forms. Their main activity place was the Chaos Sea, or even the world outside the Chaos Sea. Such a place, even Master God Tier rarely ventured there. What more a true God Tier? It was unbelievable that the king of the blazing sun could be related to so many legendary dragons on the high continent. Interesting. Then show me what you're made of. An interested look appeared in the dark holy dragon's eyes. Then with a thought, it activated 1/1000th of its power. The next second, the amount of black rainwater that fell from the sky increased by 10 times. At the same time, the quality of the black rainwater suddenly increased by 10 times. Zhou Zhou, who was the first to bear the brunt, immediately changed his expression. His first thought was, he would definitely not be able to block it. The second thought was, let's give it our all. He did as he said. Without thinking, he restrained the regal dragon resistance in the regal sage Dao sword and told he not to attack. On the other hand, he extracted all the energy in his body, and even extracted the power in his body, and poured it all into the sword of new dimension creation in his hand. Buzz! The sword of new dimension creation trembled violently, especially the silver wheel at the center of the hilt. It emitted a crisp ring that seemed to be able to transmigrate time and space. At the same time, silver gray power of time and space surged out of the silver light wheel, independently dividing the space around Zhou Zhou into a complete spatio-temporal region. Zhou Zhou's expression changed slightly as he held the sword of new dimension creation. At this moment, he felt that this true God-tier divine artifact seemed to have the weight of a world. He actually had a faint feeling that he could not lift it. He gritted his teeth. Regardless of the fact that his body was already crumbling more and more, and hideous cracks had even appeared on his body, he forcefully lifted it up with difficulty and raised it above his head. Then, he activated the myriad sword immortal formation at the high-tier deity level intermediate grade. Wisps of sword chi mixed with blood light quickly interweaved and gathered under the realm of sword chi thread. Then, in the blink of an eye, they formed a huge silver-gray sword chi that was 10,000 miles long with blood threads. Thick space-time fluctuations spread out in all directions from this huge silver-gray sword chi. Wherever it passed, space shattered and time slowed down. Its power was astonishing. High up in the sky, when the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul saw this scene, he was secretly shocked. This sword was even stronger than the previous attack. Was this guy a monster? The Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul couldn't help but think. However, he soon became envious. The better this human lord performed, the more it proved that he had made the right choice. I must possess this human's body. The Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul licked his lips as he thought. At this moment, Zhou, whose clothes were tattered and covered in blood, used his last bit of strength to finally slash out with the sword that he had accumulated all his strength. The black rainwater was cut into two wherever the sword chi passed. Then, in the manner of space-time leap, it charged towards the dark holy dragon in the sky. The dark holy dragon also saw the sword. A look of admiration flashed in his eyes. Then, he once again used 1/1000th of his strength. The total amount of black rainwater increased by 10 times, and the quality also increased by 10 times. Rumble. It was suspected that a divine river had descended from the 9 heavens. The myriad sword immortal formation that Zhou had just released was directly suppressed and obliterated by the black rain that had increased in power. Right on the heels of that, the black rain continued to tilt towards Zhou, enveloping him before he could escape. Boom. Space destroyed. Time shattered. Under this attack, even a small world would be destroyed. Dead. When the Black Dragon Emperor's remnant soul saw this scene, he was shocked and secretly worried. At least leave 1 drop of his blood. This way, he could use his own means to reconstruct Zhou's body before possessing it. He wouldn't be able to obtain anything if there was not even a drop of blood left. Is he dead? On the other side, when the Dark Holy Dragon saw this scene, it could not help but think. Then, he immediately threw away this thought. He could sense it. Even at the last moment, this human did not feel any despair. He must have his own trump card. Thinking of this, the Dark Holy Dragon had a thought. The black rainwater that had already covered half of the green bronze mausoleum suddenly vanished. He looked over at the spot where Zhou had been floating. A grayish-white crown stood there quietly. Wisps of grayish-white aura continued to rise from the crown, carrying traces of dense final aura. Right on the heels of that, wisps of final power gathered together and gradually gathered into a complete human figure. Then, the human figure's face and clothes gradually became clear and finally condensed into Zhou's appearance. Boom! A legendary cultivation aura erupted from his body. Zhou felt that his strength had increased by a small level, and a smile appeared on his face. Even though it only increased by a small level, it also verifies what I've always thought. This power of final nirvana can indeed revive one's strength without any side effects. Even my damaged Emperor Dragon robe has recovered. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. His eyes lit up as he thought, and he could feel the power of final nirvana could have the same revival effect, even if he entered the God Spirit realm in the future. And now the number of times he could revive was 24 times. It was enough for him to safely survive 24 death crises. Since the power of final nirvana is so superb, it's better to die as little as possible in the future. At least I can't die just to increase my strength. It wouldn't be worth it. I have to use the power of final nirvana in a true life and death crisis. Zhou muttered. Chapter 788 Using the Book of Silver. He was just experimenting with the use of the power of final nirvana. He would let it be since it had been used. Zhou stopped thinking and looked up at the Dark Holy Dragon. The contract has been completed. Lord of the Blazing Sun, you're an interesting lord. I hope we meet again in the future. The Dark Holy Dragon was about to leave after saying that. Divine Ancestor. Lord Divine Ancestor, you can't leave. You haven't killed that human lord yet. When the Black Dragon remnant soul saw that the Dark Holy Dragon was about to leave, it immediately panicked. Not only was this human not dead, but his strength had also increased. He would definitely not be able to defeat him. Wouldn't he only have a dead end facing this human lord alone now that his backer was about to leave? The Dark Holy Dragon glanced coldly at him. Boom! The huge divine sense impact instantly obliterated the consciousness of the Black Dragon remnant soul. Before the Black Dragon remnant soul could react, its eyes became lifeless, and its face became very dull. After doing all this, the Dark Holy Dragon seemed to have done nothing, and its body gradually disappeared into the void. Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw this. After seeing the dark holy dragon completely disappear, he flew up and came to the stunned black dragon remnant soul. After another inspection, and confirming that the other party's consciousness had really been erased, Zhou could not help but shake his head. This black dragon remnant soul was really stupid. Did he really think that an existence like the legendary tier dragon race could be commanded by him? You're teaching the legendary tier dragon race? This black dragon remnant soul only had itself to blame for falling to such a state. He put it away, and prepared to use it as a building material for the dragon transformation pool, after it was built in the future. Zhou did not care about the treasures in the other green bronze mausoleums, mentioned by the black dragon remnant soul. It was only a partial treasure of an empire-level lord faction. In the High Continent, it was neither too much nor too little. With the luck he had now, there was no need to spend so much effort on the treasures of an empire-level lord faction. If he had that time, he might as well develop his blazing sun kingdom in peace. He would leave treasures to fate. To Zhou, the greatest treasure was actually the mini-lord talents on him, and the lord laws behind them. Then, he called out a mysterious merchant from his internal world, and used the mysterious merchant to open a spatial passageway, and left this lonely world. However, the moment he came out, Zhou was stunned by the scene in front of him. He was actually standing on a ruin. When he looked into the distance, he could barely see the traces of the distant mountain range. The Black Dragon mountain range that was here previously had actually disappeared. Just as he was in a daze, a sword light and a golden light descended from the sky in front of him, revealing the figures of two god spirits. They were the Lord of the Night Empire, Ji Yun, and the Lord of the Divine Sword Empire, Lu Zhen. The two of them sized Zhou up from head to toe before Lu Zhen laughed. I knew it. This kid is so lucky. How could he die in a small green bronze mausoleum? He smiled. Ji Yun heaved a sigh of relief after confirming that Zhou was really not injured. Then he smiled and said, as long as nothing happened. But you did scare us. Especially old Lu. When this guy heard that you were in danger in the green bronze mausoleum I gave you, he immediately rushed over and quarreled with me. Then he directly slashed this Black Dragon mountain range into pieces just to save you. But it's strange. After old Lu shattered the entire Black Dragon mountain range, we didn't even see the green bronze mausoleum, let alone you. We were so frightened that we thought you had encountered some danger that even we couldn't discover. I didn't expect you to appear in front of us in the blink of an eye. Can you tell me what happened? Ji Yun looked at Zhou curiously. Lu Zhen also looked at Zhou. He was also curious about how Zhou appeared again. Of course, he would not force the question if the other party was unwilling to say it. Would you believe me if I said that I fought with the Master God tier? Zhou sighed. Lu Zhen and Ji Yun looked at each other at the same time and smiled. When did this kid become so humorous? The two of them did not ask further. In any case, it was fine as long as Zhou returned safely. Zhou did not say anything else. He knew that they would not believe him. But to be honest, Zhou was quite touched that these two came over together, and even shattered the Black Dragon mountain range for him. The green bronze mausoleum is gone. He thought for a moment and said, if it's gone, so be it. As long as you're safe. Ji Yun said indifferently. Lu Zhen nodded. A mystic realm that could only provide special grade soldier types was indeed nothing to them. Zhou did not say anything else. After that, he did not stay any longer. After bidding farewell to the two majesties, he left and returned to the back blazing Sun Kingdom. On the way, Zhou happened to encounter an intermediate kingdom Scarlet Army with more than 10 million soldiers. With the intention of not wasting it, he used the remaining insight defection, a total of 2,785,522 fog monsters. At this point, the number of soldiers under Zhou had reached 2,066,397,64 fog monsters. The number of Star Alliance soldiers under his command had reached more than 216 million. In total, he could control more than 2,282 million troops. A moment later, Blazing Sun Kingdom. in front of the kingdom's golden tablet. Zhou Zhou stood in front of it and looked at the book of silver in his hand. A text notification appeared. Do you want to fuse with the current kingdom's golden token, Blazing Sun Kingdom? Yes, Zhou Zhou said in a low voice. The next second, the book of silver in his hand turned into wisps of silver light and fused into the kingdom's golden tablet in front of him. After all the silver-white light spots fused in, a new text notification appeared. Book of Silver Hint. Please choose the soldier type you want to advance to 1. Special soldier type, King of Yellow Gold. 2. Special soldier type, Mammoth Halberd Soldiers. 3. Special soldier type, Blood Berserker. 4. Advanced grade soldier type, Wine Knight. Zhou Zhou took a look and chose the King of Yellow Gold without hesitation. As for the Mammoth Halberd Soldiers and the Blood Berserkers, the former was just a special soldier type that Zhou Zhou had created on the spot with the soldier type class change certificate in order to check the abilities of this soldier type. As for the latter, they were refugees who had come to the Blazing Sun Kingdom because of their beauty talent and could not be manufactured on a large scale. Therefore, King of Yellow Gold was still the best choice. The next second, a new text notification appeared again. Book of Silver Hint. You have chosen the special grade soldier type, King of Yellow Gold as the promotion target. Upgrading in progress. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.